Chapter 170. Surrounded by the demons. Zhu Feng saw that the demonic energy of the third demon general was getting stronger and stronger. His face couldn't help but reveal a trace of despair. However, he didn't regret dying in a battle with the demon clan. Squeak. The demon commander looked at Zhu Feng with its small eyes. It wanted to let this stupid human know that he would have to pay with his life for slaughtering the demons. Just when the power of the demonic runes had condensed into a ball and reached the limit of what the shifter commander could control, there was a sudden roar of thunder in the sky. A blue thunder dragon suddenly appeared above the shifter commander's head, spewing out violent lightning from its mouth, ruthlessly bombarding the condensed demonic runes in front of the shifter commander. All of this happened too suddenly, so much so that the demon race commander did not have time to react. The power of the demon runes that he had painstakingly gathered to give Zhu Feng a fatal blow. After being struck by the lightning, the power contained within immediately became chaotic and actually exploded on the spot. Boom! The sound produced by the explosion of the demonic runes shook the entire plane. The black demonic runes mixed with the blue lightning swept out in all directions, creating a hurricane that howled as it swept out in all directions. This terrifying explosion shocked all the humans and demonic beasts on the battlefield. They forgot about the battle, forgot about their mission. They all looked at the hurricane that was sweeping over at an extremely fast speed with extremely frightened eyes. No one could escape from this disaster. For a time, there was only the whistling of the hurricane on the battlefield. Sand flew everywhere, and the sky and earth changed color. In a crater less than 10 meters away from the center of the explosion, a dusty figure hugged a large rock tightly to increase his weight. He swayed unsteadily in the howling wind and was in danger of being swept away at any time. At this moment, a gray figure suddenly appeared above his head, grabbed him in his hand, and quickly fled into the distance. In just a few breaths, they were far away from the center of the explosion and landed on the flat ground outside the battlefield. The gray figure was none other than Zhu Feng, who was covered in dust from the sudden explosion. He looked at the figure in his hand and said angrily, "You're just making trouble. Who told you to sneak back?" "Ahem, senior. Is this how you treat your savior?" The dusty figure smiled and said to Zhu Feng, "I, Qin Xuan, am a person who has killed a demon general. Give me some face." That's right, at the critical moment, the person who had used the power of thunder to cause chaos in the demonic runes and cause the explosion was Qin Xuan. Not long ago, Qin Xuan did retreat with the army. However, on the way back, when he thought that the garrison was very likely to be wiped out, Qin Xuan felt very uncomfortable. They were all human beings. Why could they retreat with peace of mind when others were fighting to the death? When he thought of the determined expression on Zhu Feng's face when he asked to stay, Qin Xuan suddenly made a decision. He wanted to return to the battlefield. Even if he couldn't save anyone, it would be fine if he could only kill one more ferocious beast. Qin Xuan, who had quietly left the army, was not discovered by anyone. He quickly returned to the battlefield. When he sensed the shocking fluctuation of demon energy, he quickly rushed to the place where Zhu Feng and the demon general were gathered. When he arrived at the scene and realized the predicament Zhu Feng was in, he immediately launched an attack. By chance, he broke the demon commander's killing move and created the current situation. Looking at the bright smile on Qin Xuan's dark face, Zhu Feng couldn't help but laugh. You didn't just kill a demon general. This hurricane will tear apart countless demon beasts and ferocious beasts. This is all thanks to you. Qin Xuan's eyes suddenly lit up. If this was the case, wouldn't he have a lot of credits and spiritual value points? Then the garrison troops. Qin Xuan suddenly thought of the garrison troops. He didn't know the current situation of the garrison troops. The demon commander has already been beheaded by you. Naturally, the beast tide will be in chaos. As long as the garrison troops don't suffer too many losses in this hurricane, there won't be any problems. At the mention of the garrison troops, Zhu Feng also felt a burst of excitement and relief. This hurricane could be said to have saved the lives of over 1,000 garrison troops. Qin Xuan had made a great contribution. So that guy was the demon commander. Qin Chuan was a little surprised. He didn't expect that the demon general who blew himself up was actually the demon commander. If that was the case, wouldn't this beast tide be destroyed by itself? Just as Qin Chuan had expected, after the death of the demon race's commander, the demon beast horde fell into chaos. All the demon beasts and ferocious beasts fled in panic, completely losing their organization. This wave of demon beast horde was finally stopped, just when Qin Chuan and Zhu Feng were feeling excited because the beast tide had dispersed. Qi Yong's figure continuously jumped on the battlefield. Soon, he arrived in front of Qin Chuan. He stood straight and saluted Qin Chuan. His voice was loud and choked with sobs. I, Qi Yong, represent the 1,320 soldiers of the garrison troops to thank Qin Chuan for saving our lives. Sir, you're too polite. I just happened to be there. I didn't do anything. Facing Qi Yong's gratitude, Qin Chuan awkwardly scratched his head. He was really not used to facing this kind of situation. Don't scratch your head. Stand up straight. This is the respect and courtesy you deserve. Zhu Feng chuckled and patted Qin Chuan's back gently. You are not only the savior of the garrison troops, but also the savior of the entire elf city. If Qin Chuan hadn't acted in time, Zhu Feng might have died, and the garrison troops would have been wiped out. The elf ship wouldn't have been able to resist the beast tide, and the elf city behind would have faced the threat of the beast tide directly. At that time, the city would have been destroyed. It was not an exaggeration to say that Qin Chuan was the savior of everyone in the elf city. Qin Chuan deserved Qi Yong's salute and gratitude. I was prepared to die for this battle, but I never thought that such a miracle would happen. Life is full of ups and downs, and this is it. Originally, when Qi Yong sensed that the demon commander wanted to use the power of the demon runes to kill Zhu Feng, he had rushed to Zhu Feng's aid. However, he was too far away from Zhu Feng and couldn't make it in time. Just as he was filled with regret, Qin Chuan acted. How could Qi Yong, who had fallen into despair, not be excited and happy? Let's go, our little hero. Let's return to the elf ship and celebrate. Qi Yong laughed and grabbed Qin Chuan's shoulder. It was as if he was talking to a brother. He said to Qin Chuan, "If you weren't a student of the Black Moon Combat Academy, I would have hoped that you would become a soldier. You would definitely be an outstanding warrior." Chapter 171. On the way back to the elf, Qin Chuan looked at the destruction caused by the hurricane and was extremely shocked. Although all of this was caused by him, he never thought that the destructive power of the demonic runes would be so terrifying. The demonic runes of the commander of the demonic runes are too terrifying. Qin Chuan couldn't help but exclaim, "I feel that even a golden core stage powerhouse might not be able to survive in the center of the explosion. Although the destructive power of the explosion of the demonic runes is strong, it's not strong to this extent." Zhu Feng smiled and explained to Qin Chuan, the hurricane that swept across the battlefield had such destructive power. The power of the demonic runes was only one of the reasons. The explosion of the demonic core of the demonic beast commander was the second reason, and your power of thunder was the third reason. When these three violent forces combined, the destructive power produced was naturally incomparably astonishing. The demonic runes contain a vast amount of demonic power and was very unstable. The lightning power had always been known for its violence. Coupled with the demonic core explosion that contained all of the demonic power of the commander of the demonic runes, the combination of the three produced a terrifying power that even a golden core stage powerhouse might not dare to take. After hearing Zhu Feng's explanation, Qin Chuan felt a lingering fear in his heart. Fortunately, Zhu Feng had rescued him from the center of the explosion in time. Otherwise, he might not have been able to hold on until the hurricane dissipated. "Sir," a soldier with a dusty face ran from not far away and stood in front of Qi Yong. He said loudly, "In this battle, we sacrificed 120 soldiers and killed countless demonic beasts." Hearing the soldier's report, Qi Yong's eyes turned red. He saluted the soldiers solemnly and said, "Everyone has worked hard. Fighting to protect the city of elves is not hard at all. The soldier's tone was impassioned. Most of the soldiers in the garrison were natives of the city of elves. They would not hesitate to die in order to protect their homeland. Seeing Qi Yong talking to the soldier, Qin Xuan was filled with awe. These soldiers who fought to the death to protect their homeland were all heroes. Feng Zhu, who was standing aside, saw the change in Qin Xuan's expression. He slightly pursed his lips and asked Qin Xuan, "Qin Xuan, I'm about to graduate." Qin Xuan was stunned for a moment. Then he smiled and said to Zhu Feng, "Congratulations, senior." "Thank you for your congratulations." Zhu Feng sighed regretfully and said, "When I entered the school, I was in high spirits. I thought that I was the most outstanding genius in the world. I thought that no one could surpass me, whether it was in the field of battle formations or in the field of auxiliary formations. However, when I participated in the ranking competition for the first time, I was taught a lesson by the proud sons of heaven of the other schools. That year, my seniors and I tried our best, but we only won the 5th place for the school. As the strongest new student that year, I only got 4th place in the Battle of the Freshmen. Up until now, I still remember the ridicule those people gave me. They said that talisman formation masters should obediently play the role of support, and that reclaiming the glory of battle formations was only a delusion. Later on, when I thought back to the past, I began to doubt my own persistence. Can the glory of battle formations really be reclaimed? Teacher Ning Ye's strength encouraged me to continue walking the path of battle formations. However, your appearance gave me the hope of reclaiming the glory of battle formations. Zhu Feng looked at Qin Xuan with a serious and solemn expression and pleaded, "Qin Xuan, please promise me that you will participate in the ranking competition of the 6 great academies in half a year. Use your identity as a battle formation master to let the entire Star Dragon Federation know about our Black Moon Combat Academy." Facing Zhu Feng's sincere gaze, Qin Xuan was moved. He vigorously nodded and firmly replied, "Senior, I promise you, I will definitely let everyone know the strength of a battle formation master. I will let everyone know the strength of our Black Moon Combat Academy." "Thank you." Zhu Feng faintly smiled and said, "It's really great that I can see you appear before I graduate." The ranking competition was held once every 3 years, and only students under the 4th year were allowed to participate. This also meant that everyone only had one chance to participate in the ranking competition. Zhu Feng had left behind many regrets during the ranking competition, and he had no chance to make up for it. Now, he didn't want Qin Xuan to have any regrets. "For the next 6 months, I will still stay at the academy. When Teacher Ningya doesn't have time, if you have any questions, you can come to me. I will do my best to help you." Zhu Feng faintly smiled and gently patted Qin Xuan's shoulder. Facing Zhu Feng's kindness, Qin Xuan curiously asked, "Senior, are you also a commoner?" "That's right." Zhu Feng nodded and said, "I'm the same as you, a commoner. It's probably because of this that I always feel a sense of familiarity when I look at you. It must be very difficult for a commoner to become the president of the student council." Qin Xuan looked at Zhu Feng with a slightly complicated expression. Although he didn't know much about Zhu Feng's past, he could imagine that Zhu Feng must have experienced many setbacks in the past. Even the ridicule he received during the ranking competition was mostly directed at Zhu Feng's background. Zhu Feng was silent for a moment, then suddenly asked Qin Xuan, "Do you also want to become the president of the student council? If it's possible." Qin Xuan earnestly nodded. "Senior, if you can do it, there's no reason why I can't do it." "Very good." Zhu Feng laughed. "If you can reach the foundation establishment stage in the next 6 months, then I will help you." 6 months? Qin Xuan quietly clenched his fist. He could definitely reach the foundation establishment stage in 6 months. As they got closer and closer to the Elfin, Qin Xuan met more and more garrison soldiers. Before this, the news that Qin Xuan attacked the monster commander had already spread. Everyone knew clearly that this 18-year-old boy killed the monster commander and saved all their lives. Along the way, every soldier who saw Qin Xuan would inevitably salute to Qin Xuan, and Qin Xuan would inevitably return the salute. These soldiers were grateful to him for saving their lives. So how could he not respect their fearless spirit? When Qin Chuan and Zhu Feng returned to the Elfin, they saw Luo, who at the entrance with a complicated expression. He looked at Qin Chuan and sighed, "I'm not as good as you. Teacher, you are responsible for protecting so many students. You are different from me." Qin Chuan chuckled and said to Luo, who, actually, after I sneaked back, I was also a little afraid and regretful. But fortunately, I had Senior to set an example for me, so I didn't run away. Hearing Qin Chuan's words, Luo, who couldn't help but laugh, "I'm already so old. Do I need you to comfort me in a roundabout way? Let's go back and let the other students see our great hero." Chapter 172. Seeing Qin Chuan once again, everyone looked at Qin Chuan with complicated gazes. There was envy, confusion, and even respect. Under those circumstances, they had only felt fear and unease when facing the pressure from the beast wave. They had never thought about the lives of the garrison soldiers, nor had they considered what they should do for them. However, Qin Chuan had decided to return to the battlefield under those circumstances and had even succeeded in killing the shifter commander. He had turned the tables and won the war. Although Qin Chuan's killing of the shifter commander was largely due to luck, at least Qin Chuan dared to do what he wanted. Just this point alone made them unable to compare to Qin Chuan. Looking at Qin Chuan standing next to Zhu Feng, regardless of whether they were freshmen or seniors, all of them had the same thought. Perhaps after Zhu Feng graduated, the new leader of the student council would be Qin Chuan. Only Qin Chuan could convince the masses. If one were to ask who had the most complicated feelings, it would definitely be Qin Chuan. Before this, although Qin Chuan's strength had always suppressed his, he had never been convinced. He felt that Qin Chuan was not worthy of the 001 student number, and he also felt that he was not inferior to Qin Chuan. However, now, he finally saw the gap between him and Qin Chuan. Whether it was in terms of willpower or strength, there was a huge gap between them in every aspect. He had no choice but to be convinced. Facing the various gazes from the crowd, Qin Chuan felt a little helpless. In fact, he wasn't used to this kind of situation. He preferred the feeling of being able to put his arms around his classmates' shoulders and laugh. He didn't like the current situation where there was a sense of distance. When the garrison soldiers appeared in the hall, the atmosphere couldn't help but become a little strange. Many of the students from the Black Moon Combat Academy didn't dare to look at the garrison soldiers because they felt ashamed. When they should have been fighting side by side, they had chosen to retreat and abandon their comrades. This was a very despicable thing to do. However, the garrison soldiers didn't take this matter to heart. Protecting the Elven City was something they had to do, and the students from the Black Moon Combat Academy had only come to help. It was completely understandable that these students would choose to retreat when faced with an irresistible danger. After all, these people were only around 20 years old and were different from the soldiers who had experienced bloody battles on the battlefield. After the initial awkwardness, the atmosphere in the hall quickly became lively. Everyone temporarily put down the grief of their comrade's sacrifice and enjoyed the joy of returning victorious. Qin Chuan, as the main character of this celebration banquet, didn't stay in the hall for long. He found an opportunity to leave the hall. He was about to return to his room to rest when a figure suddenly appeared and blocked his path. Seeing Blue Pool standing in front of him, Qin Chuan was slightly stunned and asked, "What do you want?" Blue Pool looked at Qin Chuan with a complicated gaze and said, "The person who made a move on you last time should be from the Wu family. You'd better be careful of the second-year Wu Jia." Hearing Blue Pool's reminder, Qin Chuan was a little surprised and asked in puzzlement, "Are you helping me? You're actually so kind." If he wasn't on the elven ship, Qin Chuan would definitely take a good look at the sky to see if the sun had risen from the west today. Blue Pool's behavior was too abnormal. "I just don't want you to be schemed to death. In the future, I'll definitely defeat you fair and square." Blue Pool snorted and turned to walk towards the hall. He was afraid that if he continued to stay with Qin Chuan, he would be angered to death by Qin Chuan. Seeing Blue Pool's departing figure, Qin Chuan grinned and said, "Thanks. Bluepool's footsteps paused for a moment before he left quickly. Is it really the Wu family? Qin Chuan felt that Bluepool probably wouldn't play the game of sowing discord with him at a time like this. Moreover, Qin Chuan had his suspicions about the Wu family to begin with. Now, he was just more certain. Handsome boy, what are you looking at? Ningya's figure appeared behind Qin Chuan at some point in time. She leaned against the corridor's wall and looked at Qin Chuan with a smile. She was still wearing her iconic moon-white cheongsam. Hearing Ningya's voice, Qin Chuan immediately turned and smiled at her, saying, "Nothing much. Teacher, why are you appearing and disappearing so mysteriously? I just heard about some little fellow's glorious deeds, so I specially rushed back to take a look." Ningya opened her palm, and a folding fan appeared in it. She opened the folding fan and gently fanned it twice, causing a fragrant wind to blow. Qin Chuan looked at the words, "The tallest tree in the forest will be destroyed by the wind," written on the folding fan, and said with a bitter smile, "Teacher, are you warning me? You've already been targeted, yet you're still performing so well. You're clearly forcing them to kill you." Ningya let out a faint sigh and said, "I guess you're going to say that I'm the one who made you perform well, and that it's all my fault, right?" Qin Chuan grinned and said, "I didn't say that. You said it yourself. Those people probably won't continue to give you the chance to grow. After all, you're growing too fast, and your influence is getting bigger and bigger. Therefore, they'll definitely make a move on you again in the near future." Ningya looked deeply at Qin Chuan and said, "If you don't want to die and want to live, then it's best that you don't act alone during this time. If possible, try to stay with Zhu Feng." Qin Chuan's expression turned serious when he heard this. He asked, "Is it the Wu family?" "I'm not sure if it's the Wu family, but the people who have the guts to make a move on you at this time are definitely not simple." Ningya chuckled and said, "I'm not afraid to tell you the truth. Our Black Moon Combat Academy's council has a total of 10 permanent council members, and half of them come from the various large families and sects of the Star Dragon Federation. They provide the Academy with a large amount of resources every year, not out of kindness, but to protect their status as council members so that they can explore the secrets of the Cursed Lands. I wouldn't be surprised if any of these people made a move on you, and it's possible that it's the Wu family as well. In short, there are too many people who want to obtain secrets from you, and it's impossible to guard against all of them. Teacher, I've realized that you always bring me a different kind of surprise every time." Qin Chuan felt somewhat helpless. He had only taken a stroll around the Cursed Lands, so how did he end up being targeted by so many big shots? These people are willing to do anything for the sake of obtaining the secrets of the Cursed Lands. Therefore, you should be careful. Ningya looked at Qin Chuan playfully and said, "If you can't hold on any longer, then you should find a corner to hide in for the time being. Wait until I, your teacher, have successfully advanced to the nascent soul stage before you come out. At that time, no one will dare to make a move on you." Qin Chuan rolled his eyes when he heard this. Only you can think of such a rotten idea. Chapter 173. Happy times were always short-lived. After the celebratory feast, Qiyong could not help but think about a serious problem. The beast horde was becoming more and more difficult to deal with. If there were no reinforcements, it would be very difficult for them to resist the fourth beast horde. In the command room, Qiyong looked at the embarrassed Luo who's sitting in front of him. He pursed his lips and said, "Big Beard, we've known each other for so many years. If you have something to say, just say it. Don't be so wishy-washy like a girl." Luo, who looked at Qiyong with some shame, and said, "What happened today was actually my fault. In the future, I will definitely not let something like abandoning my comrades happen again." Qiyong looked deeply at Luo, who, and said, "You mean to say that you will fight alongside us tomorrow and will not retreat even if you die?" Originally, I wanted to bring the students back to school directly, but now I've thought it through. By doing so, I'm instilling bad ideas in the students. Luo, who took a deep breath and said, "Death is not scary. What's scary is that when faced with danger, all they want to do is to escape and retreat. They don't have the spirit to fight. Today, if I hadn't told the students to be prepared to retreat at any time before the battle started, causing them to lose their fighting spirit and belief in victory, the outcome might have been different. To be honest, Luo, who regretted what had happened today. As a teacher, it was true that he wanted to protect his students, but he couldn't protect them forever. He had allowed his students to retreat today. Perhaps in the future, when they faced danger again, these students would continue to retreat to save their lives. Perhaps in this lifetime, they would be forced to compromise and struggle for survival, never to take another step forward again. But you have to understand that tomorrow's fourth beast horde will definitely be more dangerous than today's. Furthermore, the spatial tunnel should be opening soon. If you don't retreat now, it will be too late when you want to retreat. To the garrison, the Black Moon Combat Academy was their only reinforcements. If the Black Moon Combat Academy retreated, the pressure on them would be incomparably great. However, they could not prevent the Black Moon Combat Academy from retreating because of their own selfish motives. This was not fair to the Black Moon Combat Academy. Therefore, he was willing to give Luo another chance to make a choice. I will go back and ask the students for their opinions. Those who are willing to stay can stay. Those who are unwilling can return to school. Luo gritted her teeth and said, "In any case, I will definitely not leave. I hope your students can be as brave as you." Chiyong looked at Luo with gratitude and said, "We will definitely." Beep, beep, beep. Suddenly, an ear-piercing alarm sounded. Hearing this alarm, Chiyong's expression couldn't help but change. This was the alarm system of the Elven, reminding them that danger was approaching. "Sir!" The door of the command room was pushed open from the outside. The warrior in charge of the monitoring room quickly walked in and said to Chiyong with a serious expression, "The beast tide is here." At 1 o'clock in the morning, the fourth wave of beast horde broke out. No one expected that the fourth beast tide would erupt at 1 o'clock in the morning. It came suddenly and violently. By the time everyone reacted and prepared for battle, the beast tide was less than a kilometer away from the Elfin. It would only take a short moment to complete this kilometer charge and approach the Elfin. And most importantly, in this beast tide, there wasn't a single ferocious beast. They were all Yao beasts. Qin Chuan mixed in with the chaotic crowd and boarded the deck of the Elfin. He looked down at the tide of Yao beasts rushing in the darkness with a solemn expression on his face. In such a chaotic and dark environment, the difficulty of fighting the Yao beasts was infinitely higher. The slightest carelessness could put their lives in danger. "Listen up, fire!" Following Chiyong's roar, the Comet-class battleship cannons and laser cannons on the bridge fired at the same time. A dazzling light burst out in the darkness, killing thousands of Yao beasts. However, compared to the vast and mighty beast tide, this was just a drop in the ocean. Flare rise to the sky. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. Dozens of flares rose to the sky, hanging in the sky like small suns, illuminating the ground within a kilometer in front of the Elfin. One could even see the dust constantly jumping under the tremors of the earth, like a waltz that symbolized death. "All troops attack!" Chiyong shouted and took the lead to rush out of the Elfin toward the approaching beast tide. In such a situation, as the commander, it was no longer suitable for him to stay on the Elfin and coordinate the overall situation. He had to charge at the front and boost the morale. Luo, who saw that Chiyong had led the garrison troops out, he gritted his teeth and shouted to the frightened students, "Now, those who are afraid of death can escape to the Elfin city. Those who are not afraid of death, charge with me." Luo, who didn't give these students a chance to think or react. He directly jumped out and landed on the ground with a bang. Like a mad bull, he rushed toward the beast tide. Just as the students were hesitating, Zhu Feng had already followed Luo, Qin Chuan did the same, but this time, Qin Chuan had one more person by his side. It was Bai Yu. Qin Chuan glanced at the expressionless Bai Yu and asked with a smile, "Are you afraid?" "Yes." Bai Yu answered Qin Chuan's question frankly, without any awkwardness or embarrassment. "Actually, I'm afraid too." Qin Chuan chuckled. Looking at the beast tide that was getting closer and closer, he said to Bai Yu, "You mustn't die." Before he finished speaking, the Thunderbolt Talisman Array diagram appeared under Qin Chuan's feet. His running speed suddenly increased, and he dashed into the beast tide at lightning speed, stirring up a bloody storm. Seeing Qinchuan's figure quickly drowned by the beast tide, Baiyu pursed her lips slightly and said in a low voice, "You two." At this moment, the students on the deck were still hesitating. If they chose to retreat now, they would be able to survive safely, but this also meant that they would become deserters once again. The first time might have been due to various reasons, but this time, they wouldn't be able to find any excuses. Those who are afraid of death can retreat now. I'll charge first. Chen Changxing gritted his teeth and jumped down from the deck resolutely. He had already fallen behind Qinchuan once today. He definitely couldn't fall behind a second time. Seeing Chen Changxing attack, Blue Pool's face twitched violently. Without another word, he also jumped down. The Long family can't be humiliated because of my cowardice. Long Zhao's gaze was resolute as he looked at the surging beast tide in the darkness and let out an angry roar, unwilling to retreat. Chapter 174. There were fewer and fewer students left on the deck. Most of them chose to charge forward, while some chose to retreat. They thought that the Black Moon Combat Academy had used this as a reason to preserve their seed, so they retreated in the direction of the fairy city. No one would look down on these retreating students, because it was human nature to be afraid of death. However, everyone respected those who had charged forward against the beast tide, because those who did not retreat or abandon their companions in the face of the threat of death were worthy of respect. In this battle, the fairy city went all out. The Comet-class battleship's cannons and laser cannons never stopped firing. Thousands of electromagnetic guns fired again and again, but the beast tide seemed endless. It was impossible to kill all of them. When the fairy city's laser cannons ran out of energy, the battle finally reached its climax. All of the garrison soldiers had used up all of their ammunition and could only take out their alloy weapons to engage in close combat with the beasts. At this moment, the number of casualties among the garrison soldiers skyrocketed. It was already 4 o'clock in the morning, and the sky was slightly brighter. As far as the eye could see, the plains in front of the fairy city were covered in blood red. Humans and beasts were mixed together as they fought endlessly. Dong! Dong! At this moment, a rhythmic thumping sound came from behind the beast tide. The distant sky seemed to shatter under this thumping sound. It strangely twisted and formed a pitch-black whirlpool that emitted a heart-palpitating aura. Qi Yong, who had just killed a beast, saw the black whirlpool that suddenly appeared in the sky. His expression changed greatly as he roared. The spatial tunnel has opened. Everyone, retreat to the fairy city. Retreat. The opening of the spatial tunnel meant that the demon race's army would officially descend upon this land. It was definitely not a power that they could resist. If they did not leave now, they would only be throwing their lives away. The crowd, whose eyes had already turned red and their nerves numb, could not help but tremble when they heard Qi Yong's roar. It was as if a bucket of cold water had been poured over their heads, instantly waking them up. They raised their heads to look at the expanding black whirlpool in the sky and felt the dense demonic aura emitting from it. Everyone's faces were filled with despair. The demons are about to descend. Retreat. Feng Zhu, whose white clothes had already been dyed red, suddenly appeared beside Qinchuan. He grabbed Qinchuan's arm and quickly flew towards the elf ship. At this time, they had no time to escape back to the elf city. They could only enter the elf ship to temporarily hide. Qinchuan was pulled along by Zhu Feng, constantly turning his head to look at the black vortex in the sky. This was the first time he had witnessed the opening of a space tunnel, and also the first time he had personally experienced the terrifying strength of the monster race. When the black vortex expanded to a radius of 1,000 meters, it stopped expanding and gradually stabilized. At the same time, a sharp white horn slowly extended out of the black vortex. This white horn extended out bit by bit from the black vortex, emitting a terrifying pressure that made one's heart palpitate. That's the skeletal worship of the demon race. Seeing the white bones all over the white horn, Zhu Feng's eyes couldn't help but reveal a touch of anger. The elfin can't resist the attack of the bone warship. Activate the annihilation cannons. Qiyang's figure suddenly appeared beside Feng Zhu and Qin Chuan. He held a communicator in his hand and roared into it. Activate the annihilation cannons immediately and lock onto the bone warship. Don't let the bone warship completely teleport over. Once the bone warship completely teleported over, the elf ship, which had used up all its ammunition and energy, would become a defenseless target. With the powerful firepower of the bone warship, it would only take a moment to destroy the elf ship, and everyone would die. At this time, only by activating the meteorite annihilation cannons could they have a chance to survive. Following Qi Yang's order, the soldiers on the elf ship immediately began to activate the annihilation cannons. The annihilation cannons were very powerful, but it also took a very long time to activate, at least 20 seconds. Seeing the huge silhouette of the annihilation cannons on the deck of the elf ship, Qi Yang couldn't help but look back at the bone warship that was teleporting in the sky behind him. At this time, the bone warship had already completed half of its teleportation. Perhaps it would be able to teleport over in a dozen more seconds. At that time, the annihilation cannons might not be able to be activated. Although it was only a few seconds of time difference, for everyone, it was incomparably torturous. It was as long as a century. Buzz. With a buzzing sound, the bone warship completed its teleportation and appeared in the sky above the battlefield. The energy cannons on the huge bone wings on the left and right sides of the bone warship were already aimed at the annihilation cannons on the deck of the elf ship. With a burst of rich dark green light, dozens of energy cannons shot out, aiming directly at the annihilation cannons on the elf ship. At the same time, the annihilation cannons finally completed their final charge and were ready to fire. Bang! The green light beam and the white light beam suddenly collided in the air, erupting an astonishing energy wave. The sky and earth changed colors, and the space shattered. Just when everyone was looking at the energy cluster in the sky in horror, thinking that a hole was going to be blown in the sky, a pale and skinny palm suddenly stretched out from the skeletal warship and gently grasped at the distant energy cluster. It actually compressed the chaotic energy cluster into the size of a soccer ball, and then with a flip of the hand, it threw the energy cluster towards the Black Moon Mountain Range. When the energy ball fell into the Black Moon Mountain Range, a white light wave suddenly appeared between heaven and earth. At this moment, the world seemed to have lost all sound, all images, and only a rich white color filled everyone's vision. Rumble. With a deafening explosion, a hurricane swept out from the Black Moon Mountains and spread wildly. This hurricane was more violent and turbulent than the one caused by Qinchuan yesterday. It tore apart all obstacles and directly wiped out the forest within a radius of dozens of kilometers from this world. Qinchuan's eyes widened. Looking at the deep pit with a diameter of dozens of kilometers in the distance and feeling the strong wind blowing in his face, he was completely stunned. The annihilation cannons have the power to destroy heaven and earth. Coupled with the power of the energy cannons of the bone warship and the compression of the palm, it's not surprising that such an explosion occurred. Zhu Feng took a deep breath and said to Qin Chuan, "Run, run quickly, I'll cover you." Qin Chuan heard this and turned to look at Zhu Feng. "Senior, it's useless for you to stay. Let's go together." "Go." Zhu Feng shook his head bitterly. "None of us can leave." Chapter 175. As soon as Zhu Feng finished speaking, the skeletal warship suddenly began to sound with the sound of drums. The demonic beasts were beating the war drums to signal their attack. Rows of demonic beasts wearing simple and crude armor began to descend under the leadership of the demonic generals. In just a few moments, no less than 10,000 demonic beasts appeared on the vast plains. Although these demonic beasts were not as powerful as the demonic beast horde in terms of numbers, their overall aura was enough to match up to a million-strong demonic beast horde. This was the demonic beast's regular army. Although the demonic beast's strength is not much different from the demonic beasts, their intelligence is not inferior to us humans. These demonic beasts have undergone formal training and are proficient in teamwork. They are definitely not something that the demonic beasts in the demonic beast horde can compare to. Zhu Feng's expression turned serious as he looked at the demonic beasts that were arranging their troops and said to Qin Xuan, "It's too late for us to escape now. We can only see how many demonic beasts we can kill. Killing one won't be a loss, but killing two will be a gain." Even Qin Xuan, who had never experienced such a battle, could see that they had no chance of escaping. Rather than being chased and killed before they could run far, they might as well muster up their courage and fight with all their might. Just as everyone was in despair and prepared to risk their lives, a delicate figure slowly appeared in the sky. She looked at the skeletal warship with an unhappy expression and shouted, "We've been searching for traces of a spatial tunnel in the Black Moon Mountain range for several days. I never thought that you would actually open a spatial tunnel on this plane. That's too sinister." Looking at the figure making a ruckus at the skeletal warship, the people on the plains were somewhat astonished. Where did this little lowly come from? To the garrison troops, this little lowly might be unfamiliar, but to the students of the Black Moon Combat Academy, this little lowly was not unfamiliar at all. She had a very cute name, Suyuluo, boundless heaven and earth, borrowing law from the universe. Suyuluo shouted. The sky suddenly darkened as wind and thunder surged. A violent thunderbolt suddenly descended from the sky and fiercely bombarded the skeletal warship. However, it was blocked by a light green barrier. Who would have thought that I would encounter such a rare character like the Demon Slayer here? A slightly gloomy voice came from the skeletal warship, and then a short figure covered in a black robe appeared in the air, standing opposite Suyuluo. Everyone was a little surprised to hear how the black-robed man addressed Suyuluo. They had only seen the Demon Slayer profession in history textbooks and had never seen it in real life. The so-called Demon Slayer was a cultivator who specialized in cultivating techniques that targeted the demon clan. Their techniques might not be lethal to humans, but against the demon clan, they could unleash several times the power. It could be said that it was a profession that most demon clans hated. "I'm not a demon slayer. I just know some demon-slaying methods." Suyuluo grinned. "Are you the captain of this skeletal warship? You humans like to address the commander of a warship as captain, but I prefer you humans to address me as demon commander." The black-robed man lifted his furry paw and lifted the black hood on his head, revealing a rat-like face. He said to Suyuluo, "My name is Fei Ji, Demon Commander, a powerful demon cultivator equivalent to the Gold Core stage. I don't care if you're a fat chicken or Fei Ji. The guy who attacked just now shouldn't be you." Suyuluo glanced at the skeletal warship and said, "Where's that guy? Why won't he come out? Haha, if you want to see my lord, you'd better defeat me first." Fei Ji sneered. His figure suddenly flashed and turned into a black shadow. He silently appeared behind Suyuluo and fiercely punched the back of her head. Suyuluo abruptly turned around, raised her hand, and threw out a small pink fist. It collided with Fei's furry claws, and an astonishing wave of power erupted. Ripples spread out in all directions, shattering the clouds. Fei Ji and Suyuluo's figures moved in the air so fast that it was difficult to see with the naked eye. Even though Qin Xuan had tried his best to release his perception, he still couldn't see anything. He could only perceive the high-energy reaction produced by the strong collision of power over and over again. And this was just a probing attack between the two of them. Neither of them had used their true strength. At the same time, the demon soldiers on the skeletal warship were still landing. In just a moment, nearly 30,000 demon soldiers had gathered on the plain and were marching toward the Elfin under the leadership of the demon generals. All the obstacles in front of the demon army were swept away by brute force. Neither the garrison soldiers nor the demon beasts were spared. Seeing the powerful demon army coming toward them, Zhu Feng's face darkened. He said to Qin Xuan, "Let's go." Now that Suyuluo had taken action, other mentors would definitely block the demon army. They could take the opportunity to escape. At this stage of the war, it was no longer a stage where people like Qin Xuan could participate. Even Zhu Feng, who was in the late stage of the foundation establishment stage, could die if he was not careful. Qinchuan didn't try to be brave. He let Zhu Feng take him away from the battlefield and quickly retreated in the direction of the City of Elves. Just after the two of them had run more than 1,000 meters away, an angry roar suddenly erupted in the sky above the battlefield. "You forced me to do this." Fei Ji roared. His body suddenly swelled and became 2 meters tall. At the same time, the hair on his body slowly receded, revealing skin as delicate as a human's. Fei Ji's rat face also turned into a human's appearance, but his facial features were not handsome. Instead, he looked a little shifty-eyed, which suited his identity as a rat. After Fei Ji completed his transformation, his momentum became strong and astonishing. Strong demon qi surrounded him, exuding a terrifying pressure that made one's heart palpitate. Qinchuan witnessed the whole process of Fei Ji's transformation and was shocked speechless. If it weren't for the strong demon qi on Fei Ji's body, Qinchuan would have thought that Fei Ji was a normal human. "Humph, you demon clan are saying that you hate the human clan while secretly transforming into the human clan. How shameless!" Su Yuluo sneered. "You demon clan aren't the only ones who could transform." Su Yuluo shouted, and her figure suddenly grew taller. Her tender and lovely face transformed into a mature and elegant woman. Her aura gradually became stronger, like a blazing fireball suspended in the air, dyeing the whole world a fiery red. This was the real momentum of a gold core stage master. Chapter 176. What a terrifying power fluctuation! Looking at the blazing fireball in the distant sky, Qinchuan was dumbfounded. He had seen Su Yuluo many times in school, but he had never thought that she would be so powerful. The power of Aura's core stage cultivators is too strong. If they're constantly in a state of release, it will be a great loss to both the body and the mind. Therefore, when they're not participating in battles, most Aura's core stage cultivators will seal their own power. They will only release it when they have to fight seriously. Zhu Feng sighed enviously. He was now a practitioner in the late stage of the foundation establishment stage. It seemed that he was not far from the gold core stage, but in fact, he still had a long way to go. It might take him 3 to 5 years, or even 10 years, to touch the threshold of the gold core stage. I don't know when I will have such strength. Qinchuan looked at Su Yuluo in the sky and sighed with emotion. As a weakling, he could not even see Su Yuluo's appearance with the naked eye. All he could see was the fireball-like halo created by the blazing power. "Let's go." Zhu Feng pulled Qinchuan. If they did not leave now, it would be difficult to leave later. The two turned and continued to run in the direction of the City of Elves. In the sky behind them, the fierce battle began again. Whether it was Fei, who had completed his transformation, or Su Yuluo, who had released her power, they had almost completely disappeared from people's sight. Only the terrifying and turbulent power fluctuation constantly reminded people that there were two strong practitioners in the gold core stage fighting above them. The Demon Clan army slowly approached the Elven, but stopped when they were less than 100 meters away. A thin figure stood in front of the Elven like a mountain, blocking the advance of the Demon Clan army. 30,000 demon soldiers and thousands of demon generals. What huge force! The thin man looked indifferently at the mighty Demon Clan army in front of him and said coldly, "You shouldn't have set foot in the territory of the human clan. Please remember, my name is Wu Xin." After more than half an hour of running, Qinchuan and Zhu Feng finally returned to the Elf City. At this time, the East City gate of the Elf City was full of people. They were all looking at the distant sky with anxious and nervous eyes. Even though they were dozens of kilometers away, they could still clearly feel how fierce and turbulent the collision of the powerful auras was. "Qinchuan." Luzi ran out from the crowd and came to Qinchuan. She cheered, "It's great that you're fine." Ever since that day, when she was sent back to the Elf City to recuperate, Luzi never went to the battlefield again. It wasn't because she was timid, but because her grandfather didn't allow her to take any more risks. Under LV Xiangyan's coercion, Lu Zi could only helplessly stay in the Elf City and worry about Qinchuan's situation every day. Now that she saw Qinchuan return safe and sound, she was naturally very happy. Qinchuan forced a smile at Lu Zi and said, "Thank you, I'm fine." Looking at the forced smile on Qinchuan's face, Lu Zi was a little surprised and asked, "What's wrong with you? Your smile is so strange." "It's nothing. It's just that it's my first time facing a powerful gold core stage cultivator. My mood is a little complicated." Qinchuan explained briefly, then turned to look at the figures standing on the E-City gate and asked, "These people are?" "They are rogue cultivators who were recruited to protect the safety of the Elf City. Of course, they're just putting on a show for the residents in the city. If the front line is defeated, these people might not be able to do anything even if they risk their lives." Lu Zi explained the identity of these people to Qinchuan and said, "I saw many students before. They all returned to school through the teleportation formation. I've been very worried about you. What happened at the front line?" "The demon race army has arrived." Qinchuan looked at the sky in the distance with a serious expression and said, "Teacher Su is fighting with the demon race's demon commander. So the demon race army has already arrived." Lu Zi looked at Qinchuan with a complicated expression and said, "I've been wanting to go to the front line to fight by your side for the past few days, but I know you don't have to explain." Qinchuan looked back at Lu Zi and smiled. "Your grandfather is very worried about you. It's normal for him to leave you in the Elf City." Hearing Qinchuan's words, Lu Zi suddenly fell silent. She looked at Qinchuan and felt that he was a little unfamiliar, as if something was not right. "Look, the reinforcements are here." Suddenly, a cry of surprise came from the crowd. Everyone immediately turned to look in the direction that person was pointing. They saw a huge fleet slowly sailing over from the distant sky. The flagship in the middle had the Star Dragon Federation's 5-star red dragon flag hanging high on the deck, fluttering in the wind. "It's the 10th Legion." Someone saw the Legion flag on the warship and cheered in surprise. "It's actually the 10th Legion." Qinchuan was a little surprised. The 10th Legion was a famous legion in the Star Dragon Federation. They were invincible and had always been the strongest legion in the military. He did not expect that the Elf City would not receive reinforcements from the 28th Legion, but the brave and skilled 10th Legion. Seeing the appearance of the 10th Legion, Zhu Feng was also very happy. He excitedly said to Qinchuan, "The 10th Legion is here. The Elf City is saved." With the 10th Legion's combat ability and the strength of the Black Moon Combat Academy's teachers, the Demon Race Army was nothing to worry about. The 10th Legion passed by the left side of the Elf City without any intention of stopping. Their target was the front line. They were not here as guests, but to kill the enemy. It is said that the commander of the 10th Legion is called Qin Ju. She is the only female commander among the 30 legions of the Star Dragon Federation. LVZ looked at the 10th Army's flagship with some yearning in her eyes and said to Qinchuan, "She is definitely the strongest and most righteous general among all the army commanders. Only she would come all the way here to participate in the battle after hearing about the Beast Tide in Elf City." Qinchuan had some understanding of the 10th Legion, but he did not know much. He only knew that the commander of the 10th Legion was called Qin Ju, but he did not know that she was actually a woman. Buzz. Suddenly, a violent buzzing sound came from the 10th Legion's fleet. On the flagship, the Meteor Star Annihilation Cannon slowly lit up. In the next moment, a beam of light emitting a powerful aura suddenly shot out, aiming at the huge black vortex in the sky. The 10th Legion actually wanted to destroy the spatial tunnel and leave the Demon Race Army here. Chapter 177. Rumble. A violent explosion shook the sky, but it was not because the annihilation cannons had hit the space tunnel, but because the bone warships had shot out energy cannons and intercepted the annihilation cannons. Qinchuan swore that today was definitely the day with the most strong winds he had ever seen. Moreover, they were not natural winds. They were all caused by explosions. Seeing that the annihilation cannons had been intercepted, Qin Chuan thought that the 10th Legion would stop attacking the space tunnel. However, he had underestimated the ferocity of the 10th Legion. The entire fleet, a total of 12 warships, all the laser cannons, battleship cannons, and annihilation cannons lit up with dazzling light. They aimed at the space tunnel and fired in unison. This time, the bone warships were no longer able to block the attack of the 10th Legion. The pale and skinny palm that had appeared before once again appeared in the sky, blocking the front of the space tunnel. The palm seemed to have a magical power that could contain all kinds of power. It actually compressed all the attacks of the 10th Legion into its palm. With a casual swing, it shot the extremely unstable and terrifying power back at the 10th Legion's fleet. Just as this violent power was about to hit the 10th Legion's fleet, a strange black crack suddenly appeared in the sky and devoured the power completely, as if nothing had happened. Above the black crack, a figure in a dark green military uniform stood upright. With a light wave of his right hand wearing a white glove, the black crack dissipated into nothingness. At the east gate, Qin Chuan looked at the scene in front of him in shock. He was completely stunned. Could such a terrifying ability really be possessed by a human? That's Xinju. Luzi looked excitedly at the woman in military uniform standing in the sky and said to Qin Chuan, "Our Star Dragon Federation's only female general, Xinju. She's so powerful." Qin Chuan looked up at the figure in the sky and was shocked. Based on his feelings, he felt that Su Yuluo was definitely not Xinju's match. Xinju is known as the #1 expert below the nascent soul stage in the military. It is said that he is already at the half-step nascent soul stage and is only half a step away from the true nascent soul stage. Zhu Feng looked at Xinju in the sky with envy. If there was anyone in the Star Dragon Federation who was most likely to become the next nascent soul stage cultivator, it would definitely be Xinju. Just as everyone was discussing about Xinju's appearance, a skinny figure slowly appeared above the demon race's bone battleship. He was hunched over and had white hair. He looked like an old man with one foot in the grave. His entire body was emitting a heavy aura of death. Seeing this figure, the valiant Xinju couldn't help but frown slightly. He said in a low voice, "It's actually you, Lion Duke." "Little girl, we meet again, cough cough." The old man called Lion Duke coughed lightly and slowly took 2 steps forward. However, in an instant he crossed a distance of tens of kilometers and arrived in front of Xinju in the blink of an eye. The people standing on the eastern city gate were finally able to clearly see the true appearance of the owner of the pale white palm. "It's actually Lion Duke." Zhu Feng looked at the old man in the sky in shock and exclaimed, "How could it be him? Who is he?" Qin Chuan was a little puzzled. Why did Zhu Feng look so terrified? Luzi looked deeply at Qin Chuan and said, "As far as I know, the demon race only has one Lion Duke. He is the king of the lion race, a demon king." Demon king. Just these 2 words made Qin Chuan suck in a breath of cold air. A demon king was an existence equivalent to a nascent soul stage expert. If there is anyone who is the most terrifying in the war between us humans and demons, it must be this Lion Duke. Every time he appears in the territory of our human race, he will set off a storm of blood. According to rumors, 70 years ago, Lion Duke once fought a bloody battle with the supreme elder of the mysterious sky sect, Chu Xinghe. In that battle, Chu Xinghe died. Although Lion Duke didn't die, he was beaten to the point that his cultivation realm dropped and there was no more news of him. I thought that Lion Duke was dead, but I didn't expect him to still be alive. Luzi never thought that she would meet a peerless demon king like Lion Duke here today. Qin Chuan also never thought that the Elf City would be so lively today. It was not enough that a battle between Gold Core stage experts had appeared. Now, even the half-step nascent soul stage and the former demon king had appeared. The last time this old man saw you, you were just a little girl. I didn't expect that in just 70 years, the little girl from back then had already become a great general. Your cultivation has also grown to such an astonishing level. Lion Duke chuckled. Like a kind-looking elder, He gently spoke simple words to Chinju. However, such a Lion Duke couldn't make people feel the slightest bit of kindness. Only a dense chill filled everyone's hearts. I didn't expect that you would still be alive. Chinju looked deeply at Lion Duke and said, "The former peerless demon king has now been reduced to colluding with the rats. How sad." In the past, Lion Duke had always acted together with his own clan or powerful demon clans like the Wolf Clan and Tiger Clan. The Rat Clan was not worthy of being placed in his eyes. But now, Lion Duke had appeared with the Rat Clan. It was likely that he had yet to recover from his serious injuries 70 years ago and had lost his right to speak in the Demon Clan. Otherwise, with Lion Duke's temper, he wouldn't be talking nonsense with Chinju here. As demons, there is no distinction between high and low. On the other hand, you humans have many aristocratic families and sections. You are best at bullying commoners. Lion Duke's tone was calm, and his expression was calm. If not for his identity as a demon, he would have looked like a knowledgeable scholar. Your injuries have yet to recover, so you might not be my match. If we fight for nothing, I will at most lose some strength, but you might make things worse. Chinju looked at Lion Duke with a deep gaze and said, "Let's end this battle here. How about it?" If he was facing an ordinary demon commander, Chinju wouldn't have spoken so politely to him. However, Lion Duke was different. Although Lion Duke didn't seem to have many years left to live and was lifeless, Chinju knew in his heart that if Lion Duke really wanted to go all out, she would definitely not be his match. At that time, not to mention the 10th Army, the entire elf city would die. The reason he let Lion Duke go now was not because he was afraid of retreating, but for the sake of the overall situation. It was not worth it to use the lives of the 10th Army and tens of millions of people in the elf city to exchange for the life of a demon king who would only live for a few days. Now that I'm here, how can I leave so easily?" Lion Duke smiled lightly and said, "If I can't return to the position of Demon King, I won't be able to live for long. If you want to stop me, then go ahead." "What do you want?" Chinju frowned fiercely. There was no benefit in fighting with Lion Duke. Unless it was absolutely necessary, she didn't want to take this step. Chapter 178. Faced with Chinju's question, Lion Duke smiled and said, "Originally, I wanted to use this opportunity to slaughter the elf city and make a contribution to exchange for some rare medicinal herbs from the demon court to heal my injuries. But now I've suddenly changed my mind. As long as you give me one person, I'll immediately have the rat race retreat and never attack again." Hearing Lion Duke's request, Chinju couldn't help but be stunned. Lion Duke actually wanted a person from her? You can also see that I won't be able to live for long. Perhaps before I die, I can still regain my former might. A mere army can be destroyed. Think about it carefully. Is it worth it to use one person to exchange for the lives of tens of millions of people? Lion Duke didn't try to hide his voice when he spoke, so everyone in the elf city could hear him clearly. At this time, everyone was uneasy, but they couldn't help but be curious. Who was the person that Lion Duke wanted? To everyone, no matter who this person was, they all hoped that Chinju could be handed over. Using one person's life in exchange for the lives of tens of millions of people was definitely worth it. One had to know that this was the famous demon king Lion Duke. He was definitely not joking when he said that he wanted to slaughter tens of millions of people. Of course, if the person Lion Duke wanted was Chinju, that would be a different story. As a fellow human, I will not abandon or give up on anyone. Chinju pursed his lips and said, "If you want to fight, then let's fight. As for the matter of asking for someone, forgive me for not being able to comply." Under the watchful eyes of everyone, no matter how shameless Chinju was, he would definitely not do something like using the lives of others in exchange for Lion Duke's departure. After the storm, no one would think that she was looking at the overall situation. People would only think that she was treating human lives like grass, showing weakness to the demon race, and losing face for the human race. Chinju's words were filled with righteousness. Everyone admired Chinju's loyalty, but at the same time, they were also a little uneasy. Once they really fought, the elf city would definitely be affected at such a close distance. At that time, it would be a small matter, but once Qin Zhu was defeated, the matter would be serious. General Qin, don't be in a hurry to refuse. Lion Duke looked deeply at Qin Zhu and said, I can guarantee that I only want this person to help me do something. I won't hurt him. Looking for someone to do something? Hearing Lion Zhu's words, Qin Zhu was completely stunned. He realized that he couldn't understand Lion Zhu anymore. A famous demon king actually wanted to find a human to help him? Qin Zhu wasn't the only one who didn't understand. No one in the city understood what Lion Duke meant. A demon king was looking for someone to do something for him. Or if General Qin is unable to make a decision, why not let that person make the decision himself? When Lion Duke saw Qin Zhu's expression change, he couldn't help but chuckle. He slowly looked in the direction of the east city gate. The people standing on the east gate trembled in fear when they saw the Lion Baron looking at them. They subconsciously scattered in all directions, and as the crowd dispersed, a figure standing on the same spot became particularly eye-catching. Qin Chuan stood on the spot with a confused expression. He was puzzled by Lion Duke's gaze. Why was this old demon king targeting him? At first, when Lion Duke asked Qin Chuan for someone, Qin Chuan didn't feel anything special. However, when Lion Duke looked at the people on the east gate and locked onto him, he was stunned. Not to mention Qin Chuan, Lu Zi and Zhu Feng were also stunned. They had thought of many possibilities, but they had never thought that the person Lion Duke wanted was Qin Chuan. At this moment, everyone on the east gate couldn't help but look at Qin Chuan, who was alone. Their eyes were filled with surprise and subtlety. He is the one I want. Lion Duke looked at Qin Chuan with a meaningful gaze and said to Qin Zhu, let him come with me. This war will stop immediately. Qin Zhu couldn't help but look at the isolated Qin Chuan. Her eyes were filled with doubt. This young man looked ordinary. Why would he be targeted by Lion Duke? And from the looks of it, Lion Duke didn't have any intention of asking for him before. He only changed his mind after coming close. What secret was this young man hiding? Lion Duke didn't think much of Qin Zhu's silence. He looked at Qin Chuan and asked indifferently, young man, are you willing to come with me to save the lives of millions of people in Elf City? As Lion Duke's voice fell, the entire East Gate was silent. Everyone was waiting for Qin Chuan's response. However, Qin Chuan remained silent, as if he didn't hear Lion Duke's question. He didn't know how to answer this question. Let him, a Qi condensation stage human, go with a demon king who had killed countless people? What was the difference between this and a sheep entering a tiger's den? Even if Lion Duke had promised that he wouldn't harm his life, could a demon king's promise to a human be trusted? Qin Chuan didn't want to gamble. He didn't want to take the risk. Therefore, Qin Chuan turned to look at Qin Zhu. General Qin, if I reject this demon king, what will you do? Facing Qin Chuan's question, Qin Zhu looked deeply at Qin Chuan and said, the 10th Legion will fight to the death. This was Qin Zhu's attitude. It was not perfunctory or hypocritical. Let's go. No one knew who it was that softly uttered these words within the crowd, causing the people on the eastern city gate to become restless. Once we start fighting, who knows how many people will die? And these people will die because of you. It was unknown who said this, but everyone looked at each other. Their gazes were extremely subtle, and the atmosphere was even more strange. You guys are sending him to his death. You want him to sacrifice himself to protect you guys. Lu Zi stared angrily at the crowd and said angrily, he's only 18 years old, and he's only at the Qi condensation stage. We're not that old either. We have elders and children to take care of. Why should we die because he rejected the Demon King? Someone was unconvinced and retorted, but it successfully made Qin Chuan laugh. Everyone looked at the laughing Qin Chuan with different expressions. Ha ha ha! Qin Chuan laughed so hard that tears came out of his eyes. After a while, he stopped laughing and looked at Lion Duke with a subtle gaze. Demon King, I can go with you, but I have a condition. How about letting those people who are hiding in the crowd and talking to me come with me? As soon as Qin Chuan finished speaking, The originally chaotic East Gate immediately became silent. Everyone looked at Qin Chuan with shock in their eyes. Sure, Lion Duke looked at the crowd playfully. I'll have to trouble those few people to come out on their own. In order to protect the millions of people in Elf City, sacrificing the few of you is worth it. When the few people hiding in the crowd heard Lion Duke's words, they couldn't help but reveal looks of fear and despair. Chapter 179. Qin Chuan could not help but reveal a mocking expression on his face when he saw the sorry state of the few people in the crowd. Stop hiding. Everyone has seen it. There's no point in hiding. As Qin Chuan's voice fell, the person who was hiding in the crowd finally broke down. His expression was ferocious as he stared at Qin Chuan with crazed eyes. He let out a desperate roar. "You bastard, I'm going to kill you." With a furious roar, the person rushed out of the crowd and rushed towards Qin Chuan. "I'm joking." Qin Chuan calmly looked at the crazy figure. "If you dare to rush in front of me, I'll take it seriously." Before Qin Chuan's voice fell, the crazy person suddenly braked and stopped his charging figure less than 2 meters away from Qin Chuan. The expression on his face was extremely twisted. Seeing the person's expression, Qin Chuan chuckled and said, "The range in front of me is 3 meters. Plop. When the person heard Qin Chuan's words, he immediately retreated. However, because he could not stand firmly, he fell on his butt with a plop. His hands kept moving backward, and finally, he was 3 meters away from Qin Chuan. He allowed a long sigh of relief. On the eastern city gate, everyone was silent. Their gazes were extremely strange as they looked at the battered and exhausted figure. Some of them recognized him, while others did not. However, this did not prevent them from realizing one thing, and that was the selfishness of human nature. Just as the person let out a sigh of relief, Qin Chuan suddenly laughed and said, "I'm joking. I don't care about the others, but I must take you away." When he heard Qin Chuan's words, the expression on the person's face immediately froze. His eyes widened, and he could not catch his breath. He fainted on the spot. Seeing this scene, Qin Chuan was extremely surprised and said, he was actually scared to death. Originally, it would be a little troublesome to take him away alive, but since he's dead, it's much more convenient to take his corpse. Just when everyone thought that Qin Chuan had gone too far by teasing and scaring the person until he fainted, the person who fainted got up from the ground and cried at Qin Chuan, "I was wrong, I was really wrong. Please let me go." Everyone was flabbergasted when they saw this person suddenly crawl up from the ground. At this moment, how could they not realize that this person was clearly pretending to be unconscious? How interesting. In the sky, Lion Baron looked at the scene in front of him and said to Qin Ju happily, "This is the ugliness of human nature." Qin Ju looked at the scene in front of him and felt extremely disgusted. It was one thing for these people to not be willing to stand up and fight to the death with the demon race, but they still wanted to hit others when they were down and say such strange words. They deserved to be tortured like this. Involuntarily, Qin Ju looked at Qin Chuan. She really wanted to see what Qin Chuan planned to do next. How boring. You can't take it anymore so quickly. Qin Chuan looked at the person who had completely collapsed and was kneeling on the ground begging for mercy. He sneered and looked at the crowd. Everyone who was swept by Qin Chuan's gaze did not dare to look at Qin Chuan. They all cowered back, their hearts filled with fear. "Remember, I will leave with the Demon King, not because of you, and I don't think you owe me anything, because you are not worthy." Qin Chuan. When Luzi saw that Qin Chuan had really decided to leave with Lion Baron, she couldn't help but want to stand out. However, she was knocked out by Lu Xiangyang, who had suddenly arrived. Lu Xiangyang looked at Qin Chuan with a complicated expression and said, "Actually, you don't have to do this. Is there really no need?" Qin Chuan chuckled. "It doesn't matter." As he spoke, Qin Chuan turned to look at Lion Baron and shouted, "Retreat. The demon race army will retreat to the spatial tunnel. I will leave with you immediately." When the demon army retreated, the soldiers and students of the Black Moon Combat Academy who were fighting on the front lines were all shocked. Even the mentors were flabbergasted. The demon army clearly had the absolute advantage, So why had they suddenly retreated? When the news of what happened in Elf City spread to the battlefield, everyone was completely stunned. The Demon King Lion Baron had appeared and threatened Qin with the lives of millions of people in Elf City, forcing the demon race to retreat with him. Just as everyone was shocked, Ningyi had already rushed towards Elf City at full speed. When she arrived at the east gate, she only saw Zhu Feng with a lonely expression. "Where's Qin? Where's Lion Baron?" Ningyi landed in front of Zhu Feng with a gloomy face and said angrily, "Where did they go?" "I don't know." Zhu Feng shook his head. Qin Zhu's figure suddenly appeared beside Ningyi. He looked at her with a complicated expression and said in a low voice, "Long time no see." Seeing Qin Zhu appear, the expression on Ningyi's face suddenly became sinister. She stared at Qin Zhu and said coldly, "Did you let Lion Baron go?" "I had no choice." Qin Zhu sighed helplessly. The 10th Legion is known to be invincible, but that was in the past 70 years. I have no chance of winning against the Lion Duke. Once I lose, the Elf City will definitely be slaughtered. Ningyi sneered. "Do you know who was taken away?" "I know. It's your disciple. His name is Qin." Qin Zhu could understand Ningyi's anger. If her disciple was taken away by Lion Baron, she would also go crazy. "No, you don't know it all," Ningyi shouted angrily. He's Qin. He's the river that contains all rivers." Qin Zhu was stunned for a moment. He seemed to have thought of something and couldn't help but reveal a look of shock. In the Black Moon Mountain Range, Qin looked at Lion Baron, who was sitting in front of a big rock and roasting a lamb leg. It was really hard to associate this old man in front of him with the Demon King who had killed countless people. "Why did you capture me?" Qin was puzzled. What did this old Demon King see in him? Facing Qin's question, Lion Baron looked at Qin from head to toe and asked, "Are you a human or a demon?" Qin wanted to complain, but he didn't dare. He could only answer honestly, "I'm a pure human." "Bullshit," Lion Baron sneered. "This is the first time I've heard of a pure human with pure dragon blood in his body." Hearing Lion Baron's words, Qin's expression changed drastically. He suddenly realized why Lion Baron was targeting him. It was because of the dragon blood in his body. "Change your face? That means I'm not wrong." Lion Baron tore off some of the roasted lamb leg and threw it to Qin. He asked, "Where did you get this dragon blood from?" "Dragon Spirit Lake." Qin answered the question honestly because there was no need to hide it. "Dragon Spirit Lake?" Lion Baron frowned slightly, as if he was thinking about where the Dragon Spirit Lake was. After a while, he glanced at Qin and said, "Which perverted dragon and human woman gave birth to you?" Qin grinned and replied, "No." Chapter 180. Qin didn't expect to come to the Dragon Spirit Lake again so soon, and to follow an Archfiend King to meet another Archfiend King. When Qin and Lion Duke appeared at the shore of the Dragon Spirit Lake, everything was calm, but Lion Duke smiled and said to Qin, "Let's go. I can't wait to meet him." At the bottom of the Dragon Spirit Lake, Qin saw Song Hao again, but this time, Song Hao didn't pay any attention to him. Instead, he stared at Lion Duke with his huge dragon eyes. "It's been 8,000 years, and you're still alive." Lion Duke looked at Song Hao and was surprised. Archfiends had a long lifespan, but it was rare for them to live for 8,000 years without dying. "Little guy, who are you?" Lion Duke, who could summon wind and rain in front of outsiders, was just a little guy in front of Song Hao. That's right, Lion Duke was just a little guy according to his age. Lion Duke smiled and said to Song Hao, "Senior, I'm Lion Duke, the former leader of the Lion Clan. Because of a great battle, my cultivation fell, so I left my clan and came here." Hearing Lion Duke's answer, Song Hao didn't say anything. He slowly looked at Qin and asked, "You brought him here?" Qin nodded helplessly. He couldn't beat Song Hao, and he couldn't run away. He had no choice but to lead the way. "Why are you looking for me?" Song Hao looked at Lion Duke again and said indifferently, "It can't be that you're here to see me, your senior. It's just to see me. I do have a request." Lion Duke looked at Song Hao and said, and I want to save you and return to the demon clan with you. Save me? You want to save me? Song Hao suddenly roared 3 times and shouted at Lion Duke. It's been 8,000 years, and no one can save me. No one can break the immortal trap charm array set by the humans. Upon hearing Song Hao's roar, Qin Xuan could not help but widen his eyes in shock. He did not expect that Song Hao would be trapped in the Dragon Spirit Lake by the famous Immortal Trap Talisman Array. The Immortal Trap Talisman Array was a top-notch talisman array among the 4th-level talisman arrays. Not only was the inscription process extremely complicated, it didn't allow any deviation. The requirements could be said to be quite strict. According to Qin Xuan's knowledge, there wasn't a single grade 4 talisman formation master that was capable of setting up the Immortal Confinement Talisman Formation by himself, and it required at least 10 grade 4 talisman formation masters to join forces in order to be able to set up the Immortal Confinement Talisman Formation. Moreover, in this current era where grade 4 talisman formation masters were extremely rare, the Immortal Confinement Talisman Formation had practically become a legend, and no one was capable of setting it up again. It was no wonder that Song Hao had been trapped in the Dragon Spirit Lake for 8,000 years. As long as the Immortal Imprisoning Talisman Array was not removed, Song Hao would not be free. There's a saying in the human race that goes, everything depends on one's effort. Lion Baron said to Song Hao in an extremely serious manner, "This junior truly wants to save senior. You better tell me your purpose. Although I'm old, my mind is still very clear." Song Hao took a deep look at Lion Baron and said, "What do you want from me?" Lion Baron took a deep breath and said, "This junior wants a drop of senior's heart's blood." Clatter! Song Hao twisted his dragon body, and the black chains rattled as he pulled them. He looked at Lion Baron angrily and said in a deep voice, "Do you know what you're talking about?" "Of course, this junior knows." Lion Baron calmly faced the angry Song Hao and said, "Rumor has it that the dragon's heart's blood has a miraculous healing effect. The higher the dragon's cultivation, the stronger the effect of the heart's blood. Now that my foundation is damaged and I don't have much time left, only senior's heart's blood can save me. Do you think that by coaxing me with a few words, I'll obediently hand over my heart's blood to save you?" "Naive," Song Hao said with disdain. After experiencing the painful scam 8,000 years ago, he swore that he would never fall for anyone's trick again, not even a demon. Lion Baron was expressionless in the face of Song Hao's disdain. He calmly said, "This junior is willing to swear in the name of the Lion Clan's ancestor that if I receive senior's heart's blood, I will do everything in my power to save senior. If I can't fulfill my promise to save senior within 100 years, this junior is willing to suffer the backlash of the ancestor's demon soul and have my soul destroyed." This time, Song Hao was silent. He looked at Lion Baron for a long time before asking, "Are you really willing to swear in the name of the Lion Clan's ancestor?" In a monster race, if one swore in the name of their ancestor, it would be a great oath that could never be violated. If Lion Baron couldn't save Song Hao within 100 years after making the oath, he would suffer the backlash of the ancestor's demon soul and have his soul destroyed. Lion Baron didn't explain anything. He simply cut his finger and carved a blood-red lion pattern in the air. Its aura was simple and desolate. "I, Lion Baron, the 76th leader of the Lion Clan, swear in the name of my ancestor that if I receive Senior Song Hao's heart's blood, I will do everything in my power to save Senior Song Hao. If I can't save Senior Song Hao within 100 years, I am willing to suffer the backlash of the ancestor's demon soul and have my soul destroyed." As Lion Baron's solemn voice fell, the lion pattern suddenly emitted a hazy light. It was as if it had become a living creature. It raised its head and roared. Then, it suddenly drilled into Lion Baron's forehead and branded itself on his demon origin. After all of this happened last night, Lion Baron once again looked at Song Hao and said, "Senior, I've already made the oath. As long as Senior is willing to use your heart's blood, this junior will keep his promise and save Senior within 100 years. 100 years sounded long, but to cultivators, especially monsters, it wasn't long. Song Hao could afford to wait. "You have made the oath. but I never promised to give you my heart's blood. Song Hao looked at Lion Baron coldly. You think too much. It doesn't matter, Lion Baron calmly said. It's a blessing to be able to see Senior. Seeing Lion Baron's calm expression and didn't immediately turn hostile, Song Hao couldn't help but fall silent again. After a moment, he looked at Lion Baron deeply, then looked at Qin Chuan and said, I have one more request. If you can agree, I will give you my heart's blood. Senior, please speak. Lion Baron was pleasantly surprised. Not to mention one request. Even if it was 100 requests, he would agree. This boy is very useful to me. I want you to teach him the secret skill of your Lion Clan, Furious Heart. Furious Heart was a secret skill of the Lion Clan. It belonged to the explosive type of skill. Although it was said to be a secret and almost never spread outside, the most important thing for Lion Baron at this time was Song Hao's heart's blood. Lion Baron didn't hesitate, nor did he say any nonsense. He simply pulled out a silver hair from his head and inserted it on Qin Chuan's head. There are many differences between the cultivation methods of the monster clan and the human clan. When you practice this secret skill, you must be careful. Never use it in your human form. Also, this hair can save your life at a critical moment. You naturally know how to activate it. Chapter 181. To be honest, Qin Chuan was a little dumbfounded. He was originally just a guide, but who would have thought that in the end, he would obtain the Lion Clan's secret skill, Fury Heart. This was simply a pie falling from the sky, a pleasant surprise. Qin Chuan looked at Song Hao with a puzzled look and asked, Senior, why are you helping me? I'm not helping you. I'm helping myself. Song Hao squinted his eyes and looked at Qin Chuan. I hope you can complete the task I gave you as soon as possible. You must avenge my son. Song Hao was so good to Qin Chuan, of course, not because he liked Qin Chuan, but because he wanted to make Qin Chuan stronger so that he could avenge him faster. The secret skill of the Lion Clan wasn't a secret skill of the Dragon Clan. He didn't lose anything by teaching it to Qin Chuan. After all, he had already decided to give it to the Lion Lord after he made the oath. The secret skill of the Lion Clan was just a bonus. In any case, Qin Chuan got a real benefit. He said to Song Hao respectfully, Thank you, Senior. After thanking Song Hao, Qin Chuan turned to look at the Lion Lord with a complicated expression. You have killed too many humans. It's hard for me to thank you. The Lion Lord sneered. Have you humans not killed enough of us shifters? In the face of the Lion Lord's sneer, Qin Chuan didn't know how to respond. The Lion Lord was right. Humans did kill a lot of shifters. In the end, it was the humans who started the war. All right. Song Hao interrupted the conversation between Qin Chuan and the Lion Lord. He looked at the Lion Lord and said, Now, I will give you the heart's blood. As Song Hao's voice fell, Qin Chuan and the Lion Lord immediately quieted down. Qin Chuan looked at Song Hao curiously, wanting to see how Song Hao was going to take out the heart's blood. Song Hao's eyes were slightly closed, as if he was doing nothing. However, Qin Chuan could vaguely feel that Song Hao's body was undergoing some subtle changes. Gradually, the area between Song Hao's eyebrows turned from blue to bright red. This bright red color slowly gathered towards the center, slowly condensing into a fist-sized bead of blood. This was Song Hao's heart blood. When the heart's blood bead condensed, Qin Chuan could clearly feel that Song Hao's aura was much weaker. It was as if he had aged 100 years old. This drop of heart's blood, Song Hao's heart's eyes. Song Hao looked at the heart blood in front of him, and his voice sounded tired. He said to Lion Duke, Remember your promise. Take it and leave. I will remember my promise. I will save you within 100 years. The Lion Lord looked very excited as he carefully put away the precious heart's blood. He looked at Song Hao with gratitude, then turned around and left with Qin Chuan. After the Lion Lord and Qin Chuan left, Song Hao let out a long sigh. Another idle move. 8,000 years have passed, and even I've become this bored. Next to the Dragon Spirit Lake, Qin Chuan looked at the Lion Lord, who had calmed down, and asked, Mister, now that you have fulfilled your wish, you should let me go. The Lion Lord looked at Qin Chuan and sneered. If you go with me, everyone will think you are dead. If you go back now, are you sure you can still live a normal life? I know you humans too well. They will think you have betrayed them and become a spy for us. Otherwise, why would I let you go after killing so many people? Qin Chuan was silent for a moment, then said, No matter what, I have to go back. Why? The Lion Lord was curious. Because there are many people who care about me. They are worried about me, and they are waiting for my news. Qin Chuan smiled and said, Mister, let's go our separate ways. What do you think? The Lion Lord looked at Qin Chuan and said, To be honest, I admire you. Why don't you come back with me? I can make you a candidate for the Lion Lord. If you perform well, there's a chance you can become a holy son. Forget it. I still have a mission to complete. Qin Chuan glanced at Dragon Spirit Lake and said, My agreement with Senior Songhao only lasts for 3 years. If I follow you to the demon race, I don't know when I'll be able to return. Hearing Qin Chuan mention his agreement with Songhao, the Lion Lord did not say anything. But he could not let Qin Chuan go. I have just obtained the heart's blood, and I have not had the time to refine it. If the news spreads, I will be hunted down by you humans. So, before I refine it, you cannot leave. Qin Chuan chuckled when he heard this. Senior, you want me to follow you back to the demon race because you want to keep an eye on me at all times. You're afraid that I'll leak the news of you obtaining the heart blood. Think what you will. The Lion Lord did not explain further. He waved his hand and restrained Qin Chuan, then flew towards the Black Moon Mountain Range. Now, only the Black Moon Mountain Range was suitable for him to hide and refine the heart's blood. 5 days had passed since the end of the Beast Tide in the Elf City. In these 5 days, the news of the Beast Tide in the Elf City had spread throughout the Star Dragon Federation. In the public's knowledge, the demon race retreated because of the help of the Black Moon Combat Academy's teachers and students, as well as the timely support of the invincible 10th Legion. Very few people knew that the Elf City was safe and sound because of the self-sacrifice of a young man. Logically speaking, after the Beast Tide ended, the 10th Legion should have retreated from the Elf City and returned to their original encampment. However, because of Qin Chuan, Qin Ju did not give the order to retreat. Qin Ju, who was dressed in a dark green military uniform, stood on the deck of the flagship. He looked at the Black Moon Mountain Range with an expressionless face. Behind her stood her second-in-command, Yuna. General, someone from the family has come to see you. Yuna looked at Qin Ju straight back and couldn't help but sigh softly. In the past few days, Qin Ju had to stand here for a long time every day. Every day when the sky darkened, he would ask if there was any news about Qin Chuan. Every time there was no news, Qin Ju's face would become gloomy and he would appear very depressed. She didn't know why Qin Ju was so concerned about Qin Chuan. After all, leaving with the Lion Lord was a choice made by Qin Chuan. It had nothing to do with Qin Ju. No, Qin Ju replied indifferently. She was not in the mood to see the family. Yuna hesitated for a moment and said, General, someone from the family wants to summon you back. The 7th young master has reached the Foundation Establishment stage and wants to hold a Foundation Establishment banquet. As an elder, you should attend. Qin Ju slowly turned around and looked at Yuna calmly. He said indifferently, Do you want me to repeat my answer? No, I'm not going back. Chapter 182. While all the forces in the human world were secretly investigating Qin Chuan was sitting cross-legged in a dark cave, cultivating. After the baptism of the continuous battles in the Beast Tide, Qin Chuan had not only stabilized his previous cultivation, but also took this opportunity to raise his realm to the 11th level of the Qi refining stage. If it were before, perhaps Qin Chuan would be happy with his current achievements. But now, he really could not be happy at all. This Beast Tide made Qin Chuan realize how big the gap between him and the strong was. He could still participate in ordinary Beast Tides. But once the level of the battle was upgraded to the Demon General and the Foundation Establishment stage, he could no longer participate in the frontal battle. He could only do some sneak attacks in the dark. As for the higher levels, he could only watch from afar. This huge gap deeply stimulated Qin Chuan's heart. He knew that he was still very young and could not be rushed. He had to walk the road step by step. But the feeling that his life was not in his own hands and was in the hands of others really made Qin Chuan feel a little uncomfortable. He wanted to control his own destiny, so he longed for more strength. But the 11th level of the Qi refining stage was far from enough. Just as Qin Chuan was working hard to cultivate, Lion King also finished his refining task for the day. The power contained in the heart's blood was too great. Even someone as strong as Lion King had to be careful and refine it bit by bit. He could not rush for success. At this time, he finished his cultivation and saw that Qin Chuan was cultivating. He could not help but sneer and suddenly interrupted Qin Chuan's cultivation. Puff! Qin Chuan immediately suffered a backlash when his cultivation was forcibly interrupted. He opened his mouth and spat out a mouthful of blood. He looked at Lion King angrily and asked, "What are you doing?" "I am saving you." Lion King looked at Qin Chuan indifferently and said, "You are in such a hurry to succeed. Sooner or later, you will be possessed by the devil. Now that you are injured, rest for a while to calm your impatience." Hearing Lion King's advice, Qin Chuan could not help but take a deep breath. He knew that he was in a hurry to succeed and was likely to be possessed by the devil. But he really wanted to become stronger. "You have the dragon blood of the Elder's son. Your future will be limitless. Why are you so anxious? Just take it slow." "I also want to take it slow, but time waits for no one." "Time waits for no one? Why? Do you want to cultivate to the nascent soul stage overnight? It's not advisable to seek instant benefits." "Thank you for your advice." In the end, Qin Chuan accepted Lion Duke's advice, even though he didn't like dealing with Lion Duke. "Boy, I am in a good mood today, so I will give you some benefits." Lion King suddenly laughed and said to Qin Chuan, "Your cultivation progress is very fast now, but it can be more stable and faster. It's just that the process is a bit difficult. Are you willing to bear such inhuman pain?" Qin Chuan looked at Lion King deeply and asked, "Why are you helping me? I don't think you will help people just because you're in a good mood." For the past few days, Lion Duke had been very cold to him. Now he suddenly wanted to teach him how to practice. No matter how he looked at it, it didn't seem right. "I just think you are very interesting." Lion King didn't mind Qin Chuan's suspicion. He smiled and faintly said, "Boy, you have a thunder attribute talent rune. You cultivate the best thunder cultivation method. You have outstanding talent in talisman arrays. You also have the dragon blood to refine your body. You also have the secret skill of fury that I gave you. You are like a treasure mountain. It can be said that you are full of treasures. I want to see what kind of waves you will make in the human world in the future. Those aristocratic families and sects are used to being high and mighty. Now that a poor boy like you suddenly pops out, they will definitely try their best to get rid of you to stabilize their position and rule. The stronger you are, the harder it will be for them to get rid of you, and the more power they will lose in your hands. In this way, your internal friction is equivalent to strengthening the strength of our demon race. I think this is a good deal." Hearing Lion King's explanation, Qin Chuan looked deeply at Lion King and asked, "Aren't you afraid that I will join the aristocratic families and sects?" I can see from your performance on the East Gate that you are not the kind of person who is willing to be manipulated by others." Lion Duke smiled and said, "In your future, you will either be invincible and dominate the world, or you will die in the middle. There will never be a third possibility. Which one do you think I will be? No matter which one you are, there will only be benefits for me." Lion King stood up and walked out of the cave. As he walked, he said to Qin Chuan, "You stay here. Don't go anywhere. I will go out for a while." Even if Lion King didn't say that, Qin Chuan wouldn't take the opportunity to escape. He knew that he couldn't escape. 2 hours later, when the sky was getting dark, Lion King returned. He didn't come back empty-handed, though. He was carrying a rock the size of a bathtub. Lion King placed the rock on the ground and waved his hand. He hollowed it out and made it into a simple bathtub. He looked at Qin Chuan, who looked curious. He smiled and opened his mouth to spit out a lot of blood into the bathtub. When the bathtub was 3/4 full, Lion King closed his mouth. The cave was filled with the smell of blood, and Qin Chuan couldn't help but frown. Do you have a skill to train your body? In response to Lion King's question, Qin Chuan said, yes. The dragon transformation technique that Qin Chuan had obtained from Tsang Hao was an extremely profound body-tempering technique. Lion King walked to the side and sat down. He pointed at the bathtub and motioned for Qin Chuan to sit inside. Then I won't have to teach you. Just sit inside. Qin Chuan looked at the blood in the bathtub and asked Lion King, Senior, what kind of blood is this? This is a secret medicine that the Lion clan uses to train their body. It is made with the blood essence of 49 different beasts. In the Black Moon Mountains, I only found 40 of them. As for the remaining 9, I have no idea. Lion King looked at Qin Chuan and said, don't you want to be strong? Now, the opportunity to become strong is in front of you. As for whether you want to try it or not, it's up to you. Qin Chuan pursed his lips as he looked at the blood essence mystic medicine that was almost black in color. He didn't say anything as he simply took off his clothes and slowly sat down. Seeing Qin Chuan's actions, Lion King couldn't help but show a touch of appreciation in his eyes. He whispered, not bad. Chapter 183. When Qin Chuan sat in the blood essence elixir, he began to practice the dragonization technique according to Lion Baron's instructions. However, as soon as he started, he felt a sharp pain in his body. It was as if thousands of needles were pricking his body at the same time. The intense pain made Qin Chuan frown subconsciously, but he gritted his teeth and persevered. He did not stop his practice. Endure the pain at the beginning. Later, you will realize that you have gotten used to it. Lion Baron's reminder almost made Qin Chuan break his practice. Get used to the pain? Was this something that a normal person could do? Only a lunatic would use the blood essence elixir in the Lion clan. As time went by, Qin Chuan only felt that the pain was gradually increasing. His body did not seem to have any intention of adapting to the pain. This made Qin Chuan's face turn extremely pale. His nerves were on the verge of collapse. You are so stupid. You have dragon blood in your body. Don't you know how to mobilize the dragon blood in your body? You're using human blood to practice the dragon clan's secret technique. You did not immediately explode and die. Thanks to the dragon blood, your body has been refined before. Lion Baron saw Qin Chuan's stupidity and could not help but scold him. He had a treasure mountain, but did not know how to use it. He was stupider than a wild boar. Hold your breath and carefully feel the blood in your body. Find the golden blood in it. After hearing Lion Baron's reminder, Qin Chuan immediately calmed down and carefully felt the blood in his body. After a while, he finally found a little bit of light gold in the bright red blood. After discovering the light gold blood, he tried to use the dragonization technique to condense the light gold blood. Unexpectedly, his blood began to change from red to gold. In just a breath's time, the blood in his body had turned completely golden. At the same time, Qin Chuan's body was also changing. Originally, Qin Chuan was only 1.75 meters tall. Now, he was 10 centimeters taller. His body became more well-proportioned and slender. Compared to before, his proportions were much more perfect. If the previous Qin Chuan's body was only at the level of an ordinary passerby, then now his body had become the standard of a male god. The bloodline in your body is only ordinary human blood, while the dragon bloodline is the royal bloodline of the demon race. It can be said to be incomparably domineering. Previously, you had not activated the dragon bloodline, so your bloodline was not assimilated. Now that you have activated the dragon bloodline, your weak human bloodline naturally could not resist the assimilation of the dragon bloodline and completely turned into dragon blood. You can no longer be considered a pure human. It is not an exaggeration to say that you are a dragon man. Qin Chuan could no longer hear what the Lion Duke was saying. After his blood pulse changed, the pain was gone. He felt warm, as if he was soaking in a hot spring. It was very comfortable, and the practice of the dragon form was much smoother. His mind was completely immersed in the practice. Qin Chuan did not know how long he had practiced in the blood essence elixir. He only knew that when he stopped practicing, The blood in the bathtub had turned pale gray, exuding a strong stench. Splash! Qin Chuan jumped out of the bathtub. He looked down at his body. It was white and delicate. It could be described as crystal clear. Boy, you have been practicing for a day and a night. How do you feel? The Lion Duke looked at the naked Qin Chuan. His eyes were slightly playful, as if he was looking forward to something. Qin Chuan felt the changes in his body. At first, he was a little excited, but gradually, the expression on his face became stunned. My realm, why is it only at the 6th level of the Qi refining stage? After a day and a night of practice, his cultivation realm had not increased at all. Instead, it had regressed a lot. What was going on? Seeing the shock on Qin Chuan's face, the Lion Duke laughed and said, "It regressed." "That's right." Qin Chuan turned to look at the Lion Duke. He was a little anxious. "Please advise me. Although your cultivation has regressed, it is only temporary. As long as you practice your cultivation, absorb the spiritual energy of heaven and earth into your body and refine it into spiritual power, your realm will naturally recover." The Lion Duke looked at Qin Chuan with subtle eyes and said, "Now, your body is no longer pure human blood. It is a mixture of human and dragon blood. I don't know what kind of blood it has become. You only need to know that your realm regressed because your blood has become stronger. For example, your body was originally a cup of water, but now your body has become a bucket. If you pour a full cup of water into the bucket, it will naturally be impossible to fill the bucket. It may seem that the water has decreased, but in fact, the water has not decreased. It is just that the container has become bigger." Hearing the Lion Duke's explanation, Qin Chuan was relieved. As long as his realm was still there, it was fine. Now, your body has been tempered and has become extremely strong. Originally, your body would be full after 4 hours of practice a day, and you would not be able to absorb more spiritual energy. But now, you can practice for at least 8 hours a day. In this way, your cultivation progress will naturally be faster. As for other benefits, you can slowly experience them yourself. I'm too lazy to talk about them. Thank you, Senior. This time, Qin Chuan sincerely thanked the Lion Duke. Hearing Qin Chuan's words, the Lion Duke showed a sarcastic smile on his face and asked, "What? Now, you don't mind that I have killed too many humans? The hatred between the two races is hatred, but kindness is also kindness." Under the premise that it does not violate Junior's principles, Junior is willing to do something to repay Senior's kindness. Qin Chuan solemnly said to the Lion Duke, "Perhaps I am still an insignificant Qi refining stage and to Senior, but in the future, my achievements may not be worse than Senior's." "Good, very principled, and very confident." The Lion Duke laughed and said, "All right, go and pour the dirty water away. It is too smelly." Qin Chuan quickly poured the dirty water out of the bathtub, cleaned the bathtub, and then returned to the cave. He saw that the Lion Duke had begun to refine the heart blood, so he did not disturb him. He sat quietly and began to practice. After the tempering, Qin Chuan's cultivation speed was now much faster than before. Coupled with the support of the spiritual talisman array, it could be said that he was 1,000 miles a day. By the evening, Qin Chuan's cultivation had not only returned to the original 11th level of the Qi refining stage, but also felt that he could break through to the 12th level at any time. However, Qin Chuan was not in a hurry to break through. Instead, he patiently consolidated his current realm and consolidated his foundation. In the blink of an eye, half a month had passed. Chapter 184. Boom, boom, boom. At the entrance of the cave, Qin Chuan's fists bombarded the air, causing thunderous sounds to erupt. The power contained in each punch was definitely enough to turn a demonic beast into minced meat on the spot. After throwing hundreds of punches, Qin Chuan finally ended his practice for the day. He looked down at the blue dragon scales on his arms and couldn't help but smile bitterly. Since his blood was assimilated by the dragon blood half a month ago, Qin Chuan found that every time he exerted force, a layer of fine blue dragon scales would grow on his body uncontrollably. This made Qin Chuan look like a demon in human form, not like a human. Qin Chuan once asked Leo Duke about this, and Leo Duke replied that it was because the dragon blood was too strong and Qin Chuan's strength was too weak. When Qin Chuan reached the foundation establishment stage, he could freely control the blood in his body and no longer grow dragon scales. Now, Qin Chuan was only at the 12th level of the Qi refining stage. There was still a long way to go before he reached the foundation establishment stage. Just as Qin Chuan watched the dragon scales on his arms recede little by little, a shocking aura suddenly came from the cave. Qin Chuan looked back at the cave behind him and was surprised. It seems that he has successfully refined the blood of the heart. Qin Chuan's expression was slightly subtle. If Leo Duke had successfully refined the blood of the heart and returned to the Demon King realm, this meant that he could regain his freedom and return to the human world. This shocking aura only appeared for a short moment before it dissipated. At the same time, Leo Duke's voice came from the cave. "Kid, come in." Qin Chuan walked into the cave and looked at Leo Duke, who was sitting cross-legged on the ground. His aura was completely different from before. It was several times stronger than before. Qin Chuan said to Leo Duke with mixed feelings, "Congratulations, senior. I have regained my original cultivation, and you can also regain your freedom. But it seems that you're not very happy." Leo Duke looked at Qin Chuan. The aura of the Demon King had an absolute suppressive effect on Qin Chuan. If Qin Chuan lied now, he would definitely expose himself. It is a good thing that you have regained your original strength, but this way, you will probably have to participate in the war between humans and demons again. Qin Chuan slightly pursed his lips. To be honest, he didn't want to hear that Leo Duke would return to the battlefield. "Haha, are you worried that I will kill more humans?" Leo Duke laughed and said, "You think too much. I have no plans to return to the battlefield." Qin Chuan was a little surprised. With Leo Duke's personality, he shouldn't be like this. However, 70 years ago, I returned to the Demon Court with serious injuries, hoping that the Demon Court could repair my great Tao foundation with top-grade spiritual herbs. However, the Demon Court did not agree, causing me to miss the best opportunity to treat my injuries. My cultivation level fell completely. After that, the Demon Court ignored my contributions and helped Shurf and take away my position as the Lion King. If it were not for the Demon Court's cold-bloodedness, I would not have fallen to the point where I had to join forces with the rat race to invade your human world. When he mentioned the Demon Court, Leo Duke's eyes couldn't help but show a strong hatred. Now that he had regained his strength and even improved further, the Demon Court could forget about continuing to use him to conquer the human race. Qin Chuan was slightly stunned when he heard this. He then asked, "What do you plan to do in the future?" "I plan to travel around your human world. With my current cultivation, unless I meet someone of the same cultivation level, no one will be able to see through my identity." As he spoke, Leo Duke slowly stood up. In the process of getting up, Leo Duke's appearance changed dramatically. If Leo Duke was an old man with white hair and beard before, then Leo Duke was now a young man. Moreover, the demonic power on Leo Duke's body disappeared without a trace. Instead, it was replaced by a faint spiritual power fluctuation. However, in terms of appearance, Leo Duke was no different from a normal human. On the contrary, Qin Chuan looked more like a demon. Qin Chuan didn't find it strange that Leo Duke had turned into a young man. However, what made Qin Chuan a little difficult to accept was that Leo Duke's appearance was somewhat similar to his. Leo Duke seemed to see the doubts in Qin Chuan's heart. He laughed and said, "I refined the blood of Tsang Hao Sr., and you refined the blood of Tsang Hao Sr.'s dead son. We are somewhat related in the root of our bloodlines. In addition, I deliberately did it, so naturally we look somewhat similar." Qin Chuan heard this and was a little puzzled. Deliberately? Why is that? Leo Duke looked at Qin Chuan with playful eyes and said lightly, "I have to have a reasonable identity when I travel in the human world. From now on, I will be your big cousin." Big cousin? Qin Chuan was dumbfounded. How did he become brothers with Lion Duke out of nowhere? Leo Duke ignored Qin Chuan's astonishment and continued, "When you see me in the future, remember to call me Big Cousin. As for my name, just call me Shui. Good name. Qin Chuan looked at Leo Duke strangely. This guy is too narcissistic. All right, it's time for the two of us to part ways. Leo Duke looked deeply at Qin Chuan and said, I will send you back to the elf city 100 miles away. You can walk the rest of the way by yourself. Thank you, senior. I said call me Big Cousin. Thank you, Big Cousin. Leo Duke kept his promise and left after sending Qin Chuan 100 miles away from the elf city. He did not tell Qin Chuan where he was going, and Qin Chuan was smart enough not to ask. After leaving Leo Duke, Qin Chuan should feel relaxed. However, Qin Chuan knew in his heart that when he returned this time, he would face a very serious investigation. Now is not the time to relax. After confirming the direction of the elf city, Qin Chuan began to move at full speed. However, he did not run far before he was stopped. Looking at the two figures in military uniforms standing in front of him, Qin Chuan raised his eyebrows slightly and asked, What can I do for you? You're Qin Chuan, right? One of them looked at Qin Chuan strangely and said, Come with us. What if I don't agree? Qin Chuan looked at the two people in front of him with vigilance. He did not trust anyone now. Our commander wants to see you. You must come with us. The soldier did not care about Qin Chuan's rejection at all. He reached out to grab Qin Chuan, but Qin Chuan was already prepared and pushed him back. Just as the other soldier was about to make a move, a figure suddenly appeared in front of Qin Chuan and them. This person was wearing a dark green military uniform and a cloak. He was tall and straight, and his entire body was emitting a powerful aura that made one's heart tremble. She was Qin Ju, the commander of the 10th Army. Seeing Qin Ju appear, Qin Chuan was a little surprised. The two soldiers quickly stood at attention and saluted Qin Ju, shouting, General, you guys can go. We don't need you here. Qin Ju ordered indifferently. His eyes never left Qin Chuan. Chapter 185. On the plains, Qin Chuan and Qin Ju stood opposite each other. The two of them looked at each other silently, neither of them saying a word. In the end, Qin Chuan couldn't hold it in and asked Qin Ju, General Qin, why are you looking for me? Well, you saw the two warriors just now. Qin Chuan was still curious about who wanted to see him. He actually discovered him when he was still 100 miles away from the elf city. When Qin Ju appeared, Qin Chuan naturally obtained the answer he wanted. However, he and Qin Ju had only met once and didn't have any interactions. Why would Qin Ju want to see him? Moreover, it had been almost a month since the end of the Beast Tide, but Qin Ju still hadn't left. It couldn't be because of him, right? They really look alike. Qin Ju carefully observed Qin Chuan's face and said in a low voice, Why didn't I notice it that day? Qin Chuan frowned slightly. General Qin, what are you talking about? Nothing. Qin Ju came back to his senses and pursed his lips slightly. Your teacher, Ningya, and I are good friends who have gone through life and death together. She was the one who asked me to deploy troops to search for your whereabouts nearby. Hearing Qin Ju mention Ningya, Qin Chuan couldn't help but let out a long sigh of relief. So it was an old acquaintance of his teacher. I've already informed her. She should be here soon. Qin Ju looked around and asked Qin Chuan, Where's the Lion Duke? He left. I came here by myself. Qin Chuan had no intention of betraying the Lion Duke because there was no need and no meaning. During this period of time, did the Lion Duke do anything to you? Qin Ju looked at Qin Chuan with a subtle gaze. She remembered that Qin Chuan was only at the 10th level of the Qi refinement stage back then, but now he had already reached the 12th level of the Qi refinement stage. This progress was a little too fast. Furthermore, Qin Chuan's body seemed to have been tempered extremely well. Could it be that the Lion Duke took Qin Chuan away to guide him in his cultivation? This was too inconceivable. However, what Qin Ju didn't know was that her guess was very close to the truth. Lion Lord had indeed not done anything harmful to Qin Chuan. He had even given Qin Chuan a huge opportunity. It could be said to be quite surprising. No, Lion Baron just asked me some questions and then left me in the Black Moon Mountains. I've been looking for a way out, and now I'm finally out. In the end, Qin Chuan decided to lie because the truth was too crazy. If he told the truth, something bad would definitely happen. Qin Ju was a little surprised and asked in confusion, "What question did Lion Duke ask you? Can you tell me?" "Tell me too. Let me hear it." At this moment, Ningya's figure descended from the sky. She came to Qin Chuan's side and sized him up. After confirming that Qin Chuan was fine, she heaved a sigh of relief. Then, she raised her hand and slapped Qin Chuan on the head. "Brat, you've grown up. You actually dare to follow the Demon King. Why don't you go to heaven?" Qin Chuan raised his hand and rubbed his head. He said to Ningya helplessly, "Teacher, I was forced to do that." "All right, Ningya, let's get down to business." Qin Ju looked at Ningya with a reproachful gaze, as if he wasn't satisfied with Ningya casually beating up Qin Chuan. Ningya curled her lips. "Now you know how to feel heartache. What were you doing earlier?" Qin Chuan didn't notice the secret communication between Qin Ju and Ningya. He organized his words and said to the two of them, "Lion Duke asked me about my experiences in the Cursed Lands." Hearing Qin Chuan's words, Qin Ju and Ningya's expressions changed slightly. They didn't expect Lion Duke to ask Qin Chuan about the Cursed Lands. During this period of time, Qin Ju had been investigating Qin Chuan. Naturally, he knew that Qin Chuan had gone deep into the Cursed Lands and used the teleportation formation to go to the Black Moon Combat Academy. He also knew that many people were watching Qin Chuan, wanting to know the secrets of the Cursed Lands from Qin Chuan. Could it be that Lion Duke didn't come up with it on the spur of the moment? Qin Ju frowned slightly. When Lion Duke wanted to take Qin Chuan away, she thought that he had changed his mind at the last minute. Now, it seemed that wasn't the case. How interesting." Ningya sneered. "I was wondering why a beast tide suddenly broke out in the Elf City after so many years. Furthermore, Lion Duke, who had disappeared for 70 years, is also involved. So Lion Duke is actually here for the Cursed Lands. For a Demon King like Lion Duke, who doesn't have much time to live, the secrets of the Cursed Lands must be fatally attractive to him. For some people, Lion Duke is a good partner." At this point, Ningya looked at Qin Ju and said coldly, "The 28th Legion is stationed less than 1,000 miles away from the Elf City, but they ignored the repeated requests for help from the Elf City and refused to send troops. Now, it seems that someone deliberately didn't let the 28th Legion send troops to help and created an opportunity for Lion Duke." Qin Ju pondered for a moment and said, "Could there be a misunderstanding?" "Misunderstanding?" Ningya looked sharply in the direction of the Black Moon Mountain range and said coldly, "Very few humans know about the secrets of the Cursed Lands." "How did Lion Duke know?" "Very few people know that Qin Chuan once went deep into the Cursed Lands and came out alive." "How did Lion Duke know?" "Why did Lion Duke agree that as long as Qin Chuan went with him, he would be willing to withdraw his troops? Such an obvious thing is right in front of you. Don't you understand? After Lion Duke found out about the secrets of the Cursed Lands, he could have killed Qin Chuan. Why did he let Qin Chuan go?" Lion Duke didn't kill Qin Chuan probably because he wanted Qin Chuan to live and bring out the news and cause internal strife in our human race. You know in your heart how many people are paying attention to the secrets of the Cursed Lands. Not only can you obtain the secrets of the Cursed Lands, but you can also use this opportunity to cause internal strife in our human race. Why not? Hearing Ningya's words, Qin Ju's face gradually darkened. He really didn't expect that some people would secretly collude with such a vicious demon king like Lion Duke in order to obtain the secrets of the Cursed Lands. This was simply unforgivable. Looking at the gloomy faces of Ningya and Qin Ju, Qin Chuan was dumbfounded. He didn't expect that he had just casually found an excuse to hide the truth, but it had caused Ningya to imagine such a wonderful show. "Teacher, it's a pity that you didn't become a scriptwriter." Ningya's guess could be said to be reasonable. Even Qin Chuan, who knew the truth, almost believed it. This story was so perfect that no one could find any flaws. "Qin Chuan, I will definitely uphold justice for you." Ningya reached out and gently stroked Qin Chuan's head. She said softly, They dare to collude with the demon race to harm my student. They must pay the price. Qin Chuan. Chapter 186. Qin Chuan followed behind Ningya and Qin Ju. Looking at the two people with gloomy expressions and aggressive auras, he didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Looking at the posture of these two people, they were going to find someone to fight. However, as his teacher, Ningya was concerned about him. It was normal for her to be angry because of what had happened to him. Why was Qin Ju also so indignant? Could it be because he was Ningya's best friend? Before Qin Chuan could figure out these questions, Ningya and Qin Ju had already walked into the Black Moon Combat Academy's office in the Elf City. There were many students in the office, and they saw Ningya and Qin Ju walking in together. At the same time, they also saw Qin Chuan, who had disappeared for a long time. When they saw Qin Chuan appear, everyone was shocked. They had thought that Qin Chuan had been taken away by the Lion Duke and had disappeared for so long. They didn't expect that Qin Chuan had actually returned alive. Activate the teleportation array. I want to return to the academy. Ningya's face was gloomy, as if someone owed her money and didn't want to pay it back. The staff in charge of the teleportation array was so frightened that they immediately activated it, afraid that Ningya would be angry if they delayed. Although Qin Ju wasn't a member of the Black Moon Combat Academy, and logically speaking, he didn't have the qualifications to use the teleportation array. However, because he was standing with Ningya and her expression was ugly, no one dared to stop Qin Ju. They could only watch as Qin Ju stepped onto the teleportation array to the Black Moon Combat Academy without any inspection. Buzz. When the weightlessness of the teleportation array gradually disappeared, Qin Chuan slowly opened his eyes. Looking at the familiar square in the academy, he couldn't help but open his arms and roar towards the sky. Qin Chuan am back. At this moment, the square was bustling with people. Many students were walking around. Originally, no one paid much attention to the activation of the teleportation array. However, when they heard Qin Chuan's roar, everyone subconsciously stopped and looked at Qin Chuan in astonishment. Qin Chuan, who had been taken away by the Demon King, had returned alive. The news of Qin Chuan's return spread throughout the academy in a short period of time. Everyone who knew of this news was extremely shocked by Qin Chuan's return. Who was the one who had taken Qin Chuan away? That was the infamous Demon King, who had killed countless people. Qin Chuan was actually able to return after being taken away by the Demon King for nearly a month. This was simply a miracle. At this moment, if one opened the Black Moon Combat Academy's intranet, they would see that the forums were filled with posts about Qin Chuan. Previously, everyone was still discussing why Qin Chuan had been taken away by the Demon King. Now, they were all discussing how Qin Chuan had escaped from the Demon King's clutches. Some people thought that the Demon King was too lazy to kill Qin Chuan. Others thought that Qin Chuan was just lucky. Of course, there were also some people who suspected that Qin Chuan had become a spy for the demon race. There were many different opinions, and no conclusion was reached. Just as everyone was discussing intensely, a cold voice suddenly resounded throughout the entire Azure Ancient City. Wu family, Lan family, and the Academy's board of directors. I'll give you 30 minutes to meet me at the Academy's teleportation array. If you don't come in 30 minutes, I'll immediately use the vast ocean array to flood the entire Azure Ancient City. All of your years of planning will go to waste. I, Ningya, will do as I say. Following Ningya's domineering declaration, the entire Azure Ancient City went silent for a moment. However, everyone was stunned and went into an uproar. What was she trying to do? Flood the Azure Ancient City? If someone else had said this, they would have been laughed at for overestimating themselves. However, since it was Ningya who had said it, everything was different. Those who understood Ningya knew what the vast ocean array meant. It was Ningya's famous method, a powerful rank 4 battle array. Because of Ningya's words, not only the Azure Ancient City, but even the Star Dragon Federation's influential figures were all furious. This Ningya must have gone crazy to say such arrogant words to threaten them. However, They had no choice but to believe her. Wasn't this infuriating? Soon, the Wu family and Lan family's upper echelons took action. They brought their people and rushed towards the Academy's teleportation array. They wanted to see what Ningya was planning to do today. On the other side, many members of the Academy's board of directors also reacted quickly. Although they didn't mind Ningya flooding the Azure ancient city, Ningya's threat to ruin their plans had successfully seized their lifeline, forcing them to rush to the teleportation array as quickly as possible. At this time, the teleportation array was not very big. It could be said that there was a sea of people at the teleportation array. The instructors who had heard the news and the students who had come to watch the fun had completely blocked the array. Everyone was full of curiosity. Ningya had always been low-key in the academy. Today, she suddenly flew into a rage and asked those big shots to show up. There must be a reason. At this time, Qin Xuan had returned, and Qin Xuan happened to be Ningya's student. If someone said that this matter had nothing to do with Qin Xuan, they wouldn't believe it even if they were beaten to death. Qin Xuan, what the hell is going on? Su Yuluo looked at Qin Xuan curiously. It was a miracle that this little guy could escape from the hands of Lion Duke. Qin Xuan smiled bitterly when he heard this. Looking at the array of people at the teleportation array, he was also a little stunned. He really didn't expect Ningya to make such a big move. It was too scary. Qin Xuan, in the crowd, a delicate figure squeezed out and quickly came at Qin Xuan. She looked at the safe and sound Qin Xuan and couldn't help but show a faint smile on her pale cheeks. You're okay. That's good. Looking at the smiling Baiyu, Qin Xuan was a little surprised. You can smile too? Hearing Qin Xuan's words, the smile on Baiyu's face immediately disappeared. Her expression became cold again, no different from before. Su Yuluo looked at Baiyu's expression and then looked at Qin Xuan. She couldn't help but shake her head helplessly. This kid is really straight. At this time, Lu Zi, who heard the news of Qin Xuan's return, also rushed to the teleportation array. When she saw Qin Xuan standing with Baiyu, she was stunned for a moment, then quickly walked to Qin Xuan's side. Without saying anything, she directly threw herself into Qin Xuan's arms and hugged Qin Xuan tightly. Wow! Seeing Lu Zi fly into Qin Xuan's arms, there was a burst of enthusiastic cheers in the square. Sorry, I made you worry. Qin Xuan gently hugged Lu Zi, letting Lu Zi lie in his arms and cry softly. Su Yuluo glanced at Lu Zi, who was hugging Qin Xuan tightly, then looked at her disciple who pursed her lips and didn't say anything. She helplessly shook her head again. His disciple's level was far too low when compared to the other parties. Chapter 187. Ningya, are you crazy? If you can't give me a reasonable explanation, I'll definitely complain to the dean. The first person to arrive at the teleportation plaza was the council member, Chen Jian. As soon as he arrived, he angrily threatened Ningya to give him a reasonable explanation. It was obvious that he was extremely unhappy with Ningya's threats. As an outer elder of the Black Heaven sect, he would be treated as a distinguished guest no matter where he went. This was the first time he had been threatened like this. Looking at the square-faced Chen Jian, Ningya sneered, "When everyone is here, I'll naturally give you a good explanation. However, before that, you'd better be quiet. Others might be afraid of the Black Heaven sect, but I'm not." Hearing that Ningya was not even afraid of the Black Heaven sect, Chen Jian almost exploded in anger. However, no matter how angry he was, he did not dare to offend Ningya. There was no other way. If he angered Ningya and caused her to run to the Black Heaven sect's mountain gate and cause a flood, he would become the sect's eternal sinner. Thus, Chen Jian calmed down angrily. Although he felt very sullen, he had no other choice. One by one, the members of the Board of Governors arrived at the scene. Of the 10 members of the Board of Governors, aside from the 5 old alumni of the Black Moon Combat Academy, the other 4 were Su Qi from the Divine Sword sect, Wang Lin from the Wang family, Shangwan Hong from the Shangwan family, and Jiang Xiongxin from the White Whale sect. After the old alumni arrived, they stood quietly to the side and did not make a sound. The other few council members from the world sects were like Chen Jian, who had arrived first and were extremely angry. However, They also knew that Ningya was not to be trifled with. Thus, after their anger, they quickly calmed down and began to think about why Ningya had suddenly become angry. It was obvious that this matter was definitely related to Qinchuan's return. At this moment, everyone's gaze involuntarily focused on Qinchuan. Looking at the obedient Qinchuan standing beside Ningya, with two outstanding beauties on either side of him, everyone's heads were filled with question marks. How did this guy come back alive? Could it be that the Lion Duke was too old to lift his blade? Also, why is Qinju here? Just as everyone was filled with confusion, the members of the Wu family and the Lan family finally arrived. The members of the two families landed on the teleportation plaza from different directions. Every one of them wore solemn expressions, as if they were about to face a powerful enemy. The atmosphere in the plaza instantly turned solemn. The Wu family's big shot was the Wu family's second master, Wu Yinshan. The Lan family's second elder, Lan Yuquan, was present. Wu Yinshan's face was old and his hair was gray. However, his eyes were exceptionally bright. He was dressed in black and held a walking stick. He slowly walked in front of Ningya and said indifferently, "Ningya, you threw a tantrum and called us over. We are here. Now, can you explain the reason to us? If you just want to use us to pass the time, then this matter can't be justified." Wu Yinshan's words were neither warm nor angry, but his attitude was clear. If Ningya really had something important to say, then naturally there would be no problem. However, if it was just a trivial matter, then the Wu family wouldn't be willing. Ningya sneered and said to Wu Yinshan, "Wu Yinshan, you don't have to pretend that this has nothing to do with you. I just want to ask, where is your Wu family's fourth son, Wu Yunfei?" Wu Yinshan frowned slightly and said, "Why are you looking for fourth son?" Ningya didn't bother to explain herself. She only asked to see Wu Yunfei. Wu Yunfei has always been the one overseeing the Cursed Lands. He has never entered. Everyone knows this. Now, can your Wu family summon Wu Yunfei back? Although Wu Yinshan didn't know why Ningya wanted to see Wu Yunfei, he instinctively felt that this matter wasn't good. After pondering for a moment, he replied, "Unfortunately, fourth son has been thinking about moving for the past few days and has already entered the Cursed Lands. As for when he will be able to come out, I don't know." As Wu Yunshan's voice fell, the expressions of Lan Yuquan and the many members of the Board of Governors changed slightly. They all knew that Wu Yunfei had always been guarding outside the Cursed Land and had never entered. Now that Wu Yunfei had suddenly entered the Cursed Land, they would never believe it if someone said that he was just thinking about making a move. In that case, this matter was really done by your Wu family? At this moment, Qin Ju, who had been silent all this time, suddenly took a step forward and stared coldly at Wu Yinshan. "General Qin, what do you mean by this? I don't understand." When Wu Yinshan saw Qin Ju suddenly appear, he was very surprised. Why was Qin Ju involved as well? Ningya reached out to stop Qin Ju, indicating for him to calm down. She turned to look at the members of the council and Lan Yuquan and said, "You all know that Wu Yunfei has never entered the Cursed Lands, but now Wu Yinshan says that Wu Yunfei has entered the Cursed Lands. Are you all very curious as to why Wu Yunfei would enter the Cursed Lands? Unfortunately, I might know the answer." Hearing Ningya's words, everyone's curiosity was piqued. Could it be that Ningya had caused such a huge commotion because Wu Yunfei had entered the Cursed Lands? "My good disciple, Qin Xuan, you may not know him, but you must know what happened before. He was taken away by the demon race's demon king, Lion Duke, in exchange for peace and stability in the Elf City." Ningya suddenly reached out and pulled Qin Xuan over and said to everyone, "Do you know why Lion Duke wants Qin Xuan to go with him and is even willing to give up a victory for him?" Looking at Qin Xuan, who was standing beside Ningya, everyone frowned, but Wu Yinshan seemed to have thought of something and his expression changed drastically. Just as Wu Yinshan was about to speak, Ningya spoke first and said in a deep voice, "Lion Duke captured Qin Xuan to find out what Qin Xuan had experienced in the Cursed Lands." Lion Duke captured Qin Xuan for the Cursed Lands. When Ningya said this shocking news, everyone's eyes widened. They had thought of many possibilities, but they did not expect that Lion Duke had captured Qinchuan for the secret they had always wanted from Qinchuan. The surrounding students were still confused, not knowing what the cursed lands meant, but the many mentors were shocked and could not calm down for a long time. The cursed lands were related to the nascent soul stage. Wait a minute, how did Lion Duke know the secret of the cursed lands? And how did he know that Qin Xuan had walked out of the cursed land alive? Chun Jian suddenly frowned, feeling that there were too many loopholes in this matter. That's why I called all of you here. Unfortunately, the Wu family's fourth bro suddenly entered the cursed lands. Don't you think it's strange? Ningya sneered and looked at the gloomy Wu Yunshan. She wanted to see how Wu Yunshan would explain himself. Chapter 188. Following Ningya's words, everyone turned to look at Wu Yunshan. Some were shocked, some were confused, and most of them were furious. I knew it was strange. There hasn't been a beast wave in the Elf City for so many years. Why would there be one now? Even a famous demon king like the Lion Duke is participating. So it's all for the sake of the cursed lands. Jiang Xiongxin from the White Whale sect sneered as he looked at Wu Yunshan with disdain. Your Wu family has really put in a lot of effort to obtain the secrets of the cursed lands. Jiang Xiongxin, don't you dare spout nonsense. Wu Yunshan was furious as he pointed his walking stick at Jiang Xiongxin. His Wu family had never done such a thing before, and even if they had, they would never admit it. This involved a demon king, and their Wu family would not be able to handle it. The truth is right in front of us. Do you think we'll believe you just because you're angry? Su Qi slowly stepped forward and looked at Wu Yunshan indifferently. He said in a low voice, Wu Yunfei has been guarding the periphery of the cursed lands for dozens of years and has never stepped inside. Now, you're telling us that Wu Yunfei has entered the cursed lands. Why? Could it be that he felt safer with a demon king by his side? So he went in? Hee, that's not impossible. Chun Jian sneered. They had all gathered at the Black Moon Combat Academy to explore the cursed lands and find the secret to advancing to the nascent soul stage. There was nothing wrong with a fair competition, but the Wu family had made such a scene. Colluding with the Demon King was no small matter. The Lion Duke and Qin Xuan have never met before, but the Lion Duke was able to accurately find Qin Xuan among the millions of people in the Elf City. Someone must have informed the Lion Duke beforehand and given Qin Xuan's information to the Lion Duke, allowing the Lion Duke to lock onto Qin Xuan. Moreover, the Lion Duke is an old demon king whose realm has fallen. Why would he suddenly launch such a beast tide for no reason and then hastily end it in order to capture Qin Xuan? No matter how you look at it, it's strange. I couldn't figure out first, but now, I finally understand the crux of the matter. Wang Lin chuckled as he looked at Wu Yunshan with an exceptionally cold gaze. While it was true that they were competitors, they had always minded their own business. However, if someone dared to collude with the demons, things would be different. What right do you have to accuse the Wu family of colluding with the Lion Duke just because of what Ningya said? Who knows if it's true or not? Wu Yunshan roared angrily and argued loudly. He absolutely could not let this dirty hat be placed on the Wu family's head. Shang Wanhong stepped forward and looked at Qin Xuan indifferently. Then he said to Wu Yunshan, "Are you saying that Qin Xuan is lying? His teacher is also helping him to lie and accuse your Wu family? Then please explain, why did Wu Yunfei suddenly enter the cursed lands?" Wu Yunshan's face turned red, and he almost choked to death. How was he going to explain Wu Yunfei entering the cursed lands? He would not be able to clear his name even if he jumped into the Yellow River. Cough, cough. At this moment, Lan Yuquan stepped forward and coughed lightly. He said to the crowd, "A few days ago, I think everyone knows that Qin Xuan was plotted against by someone. Someone bribed a member of the Lan family with a different surname to set up the Lan family and almost caused a rift between the Lan family and Qin Xuan. Our Lan family has been investigating who set up the Lan family. Finally, 2 days ago, we found evidence that the person who bribed Zhao Kuei to set up the Lan family was Wu Jie from the Wu family. Bullsh asterisk T. Wu Yinshan was furious. I, Lan Yuquan, have always been reasonable. You say that I'm Bullsh asterisk Ting, but what if I take out the evidence? Lan Yuquan sneered. Your Wu family wanted to get information about the cursed lands from Qin Chuan, but failed. So, you could only let the Lion Duke appear and forcefully take Qin Chuan away. Am I right? Hearing Lan Youquan's words, everyone could not help but be enlightened. They connected the dots. Because of Ningya's protection of Qin Chuan, it was difficult for the Wu family to get information about the cursed land from Qin Chuan's mouth. Therefore, they colluded with the Lion Lord and started the Beast Tide. They wanted to take advantage of the fact that Ningya was not by Qin Chuan's side to pry the secrets out of Qin Chuan's mouth. At the same time, they could also throw dirty water on the Lan family. Unexpectedly, their plan failed. At this time, even if the Wu family wanted to stop the plan, it was impossible. This was because the Lion Lord would definitely not miss the opportunity to return to the nascent soul stage. Therefore, the Lion Lord appeared and threatened the 10 million people in the fairy city to forcefully take Qin Chuan away. After finding out the secrets of the cursed land from Qin Chuan, he entered the cursed land with Wu Yunfei. Everything was so reasonable that no one could find any fault with it. Nonsense. It's a bunch of nonsense. Wu Yinshan was furious. He shouted, if this was really done by the Wu family, why didn't we just kill Qin Chuan? Why do we let him come back and leak our plan? Isn't this contradictory? Wu Yinshan's words were not without reason. Hence, everyone turned their gazes towards Qin Chuan and Ningya, waiting for their explanations. The one who took Qin Chuan away, was the Lion Duke, not the Wu family. The Lion Duke did not kill Qin Chuan because he wanted to let Qin Chuan bring the news out and cause internal strife among the human race. Don't tell me you think that the infamous Demon King Lion Duke sincerely wants to cooperate with the Wu family? Once the Wu family is dead, only the Lion Duke will know the secret of the cursed lands. Isn't that a good thing for him? Ningya smiled disdainfully. You want to explain things so easily? What a joke. I have something to say. Qin Chuan, who had been very obedient, suddenly raised his hand and spoke weakly. When everyone heard Qin Chuan's words, they couldn't help but look at Qin Chuan. Facing the dozens of golden core stage cultivators' burning gazes and hundreds of curious eyes, Qin Chuan felt his heart thumping rapidly. What do you want to say? Say it boldly. Ningya reached out and gently rubbed Qin Chuan's head. Don't be afraid. I'll stand up for you. Qin Chuan grinned and said, Teacher, maybe the Wu family was really wronged. When Qin Chuan said this, the entire place fell silent. Even Wu Yinshan was stunned. He didn't expect that Qin Chuan would take the initiative to speak up for the Wu family at such a critical moment. Could it be that things were about to take a turn for the better? Qin Chuan had no other choice. Although he hated the Wu family that had once attacked him and wanted to punish them, he had never thought of completely wiping out the Wu family. If the Wu family were to bear the infamy of colluding with the demon race because of this lie that he had unintentionally fabricated to cover up the truth, he was afraid that he would spend the rest of his life in guilt. So he decided to help the Wu family. Chapter 189. Ningya took a deep look at Qin Chuan and asked, Why do you say that? Qin Chuan scratched his head and said, Because I feel that something doesn't make sense. Hearing Qin Chuan's words, Wu Yinshan was so agitated that he almost cried. Did you see that? The person involved has already said that our Wu family is innocent, and you still want to slander us? You're simply inhumane. Student Qin Chuan, why do you say that? What's the reason? Lan Youquan's mood was a little depressed. He was about to get rid of the Lan family's sworn enemy, but Qin Chuan had to jump out and mess things up. It was really annoying. Yes, student Qin Chuan, tell us, what's the reason? At this moment, Wu Yinshan looked at Qin Chuan. The expression on his face could be said to be quite kind and amiable. Right now, no matter how he looked at Qin Chuan, he felt that he was pleasing to the eye. Under the curious gazes of the crowd, Qin Chuan pursed his lips and said, Just now, Senior Wu also said that the Wu family senior who oversaw the cursed lands entered the cursed lands a few days ago. But according to what I know, after Lion Duke heard about my experiences in the cursed lands from me, he quickly left me behind and headed towards the cursed lands. The timing of their entry into the cursed lands doesn't match. Isn't that strange? Lion Duke has just entered the cursed lands, so he can't go alone. He must be afraid of falling into a trap, so he found someone to accompany him. As Qin Chuan's voice fell, everyone couldn't help but have a look of contemplation. Qin Chuan was right. Lion Duke and Wu Yunfei entered the cursed lands at different times. If Lion Duke was really cooperating with the Wu family, then there was no reason for him to trust Qin Chuan so much and leave the Wu family behind. If that's the case, then we were negligent. Xinguan Hong pondered for a moment, then looked at Wu Yunfei and said apologetically, "I'm really sorry, just now." Wu Yunshan, why do you look so pale? Hearing Shangwan Hong's words, everyone who was frowning and deep in thought couldn't help but raise their heads and look at Wu Yunshan. Wu Yunshan, who had a benevolent expression before, now had a rather interesting expression. He simply didn't look human anymore. Seeing Wu Yunshan's expression change, Wang Lin seemed to have thought of something and blurted out, "Could it be that Wu Yunfei didn't enter the cursed lands a few days ago?" As soon as he said that, the whole place became silent again. Qin Chuan was also dumbfounded. He had stood up out of goodwill to help the Wu family out of this predicament. Did he end up making things worse for them? Wu Yunshan looked bitter. The Wu family hadn't colluded with Lion Duke, but why was all the evidence pointing to them? Where did it go wrong? Facing everyone's probing gazes, Wu Yunshan sighed and said, "The Wu family will never admit to something we didn't do." However, Yunfei really didn't enter the cursed lands a few days ago. He entered half a month ago. Half a month ago, it was almost the same time that Qin Chuan was captured by the Lion Lord. In other words, Wu Yunfei really did enter the cursed lands with the Lion Lord. Qin Chuan was dumbfounded. If he didn't know that the Lion Lord was traveling, he would have believed it. Maybe this is just their secret collaboration, Qin Chuan said carefully. He couldn't keep quiet. He couldn't really destroy the Wu family. After all, they didn't have too much of a grudge against each other. "It's not impossible," Su Qi frowned. Su Qi frowned slightly and said, "As far as I know, Wu Yunfei was once injured many years ago and was stuck in the exceptional Gold Core realm. He basically had no hope of reaching the nascent soul realm in this life. Only by getting the secret of the cursed land can he have a glimmer of hope to reach the nascent soul realm. The Lion Lord happened to be in the same predicament as Wu Yunfei. The possibility of them working together secretly is not small." Su Qi's analysis made everyone think of another possibility. That was, Wu Yunfei secretly formed an alliance with the Lion Lord behind the Wu family's back. The Wu family didn't know about it. Lan Yuquan looked deeply at Wu Yunshan's bitter face and sighed. "Wu Yunfei's injury was caused when he fought with my sixth brother. My sixth brother has already passed away. Wu Yunfei probably doesn't have much time left. Yunfei probably has less than 2 years left." Wu Yunshan's heart was sad and his face was bleak. If Wu Yunfei wanted to extend his life, in addition to searching for rare treasures to replenish his lifespan, the only way was to reach the nascent soul realm. The Lion Lord and Wu Yunfei had the same experience. If these two people worked together secretly, it wouldn't be strange at all. On the contrary, it was very reasonable. It was just that he never thought that Wu Yunfei would do such a thing behind his back. "I've heard of Wu Jia. He seems to be Wu Yunfei's grandson." Su Yuluo looked at Wu Yunshan curiously. It was reasonable for the grandfather and grandson to work together. At this time, everyone was completely clear about the cause and effect. The person who colluded with the Lion Lord might only be Wu Yunfei, not the Wu family. Qin Chuan felt that his brain wasn't enough. He found that things seemed to be developing in a very strange direction, completely deviating from the original track. In any case, the Wu family would like to thank Qin Chuan for being willing to come forward and explain things clearly for us. Wu Yunshan thanked Qin Chuan very sincerely. He was really grateful to Qin Chuan. If it weren't for Qin Huan's explanation that made them finally understand the whole story, perhaps the Wu family would really have to bear the blame. Among the world sects present, which family had a traitor, it was understandable for this kind of thing to happen. Therefore, at this time, no one found trouble with Wu Yinshan. Instead, they began to think about several other things. How did Wu Yunfei and the Lion Lord collude together? These two guys were also trapped in the peak Goldcore realm with no hope of reaching the nascent Soul realm. Could they find the secret of the cursed land? Also, what did Qin Chuan say to the Lion Lord? Qin Chuan looked at the people in the square, who lowered their heads and pondered. He didn't know how to describe his feelings at this time. He didn't expect things to turn out like this in the end. Wu Yunfei's lifespan was almost up, and Wu Jie was Wu Yunfei's grandson. Wu Jie must have been instructed by Wu Yunfei to bribe Zhao Kuei. Otherwise, with Wu Jie's face, he might not be able to bribe Zhao Kuei. Moreover, Wu Yunfei entered the Cursed Land after he was captured by the Lion Lord, probably because he thought that he would die in the hands of the Lion Lord and would have no chance to learn about the secrets of the Cursed Land from him. In addition, his lifespan was almost up, so he could only enter the Cursed Land and fight to the death. In this way, in the Wu family, only Wu Yunfei and Wu Jie were malicious to him. This time, although there were many accidents caused by a free combination of factors, the result was still good for Qin Chuan. Chapter 190. Qin Chuan's return had caused quite a stir. Everyone in the Black Moon Combat Academy was excitedly discussing the matter of Qin Chuan and the Cursed Lands. As for the person involved, Qin Chuan was currently lying on his bed with a confused look on his face. Qin Chuan had originally thought that he would face a lot of trouble after returning safely. However, he had never expected that none of the troubles that he had expected would appear. Furthermore, the situation had strangely developed in a direction that he had not expected at all. It had even developed surprisingly smoothly. Qin Chuan could not help but wonder if he was wearing a protagonist's halo. Wasn't all of this going a little too smoothly? What are you thinking about? Ningya, who was sitting by the bed, glanced at Qin Chuan, who was currently in a daze, and lightly said, "This matter is a good thing for you. Everything has been shouldered by Wu Yunfei. Wu Yunfei and Lion Duke have attracted everyone's attention, so no one will think of you." Qin Chuan slowly turned his head to look at Ningya when he heard this. He pursed his lips and said, "Teacher, you know that I'm lying. Who doesn't have a few secrets?" Ningya smiled and said, "As long as you are still my student, as long as you haven't done anything bad, then as your teacher, I will definitely protect you. Although I can tell that you're lying, I'm not someone who likes to get to the bottom of things. Furthermore, you did not kick a person when they were down and completely destroy the Wu family. I can tell that you are a kind and good child, and that is enough for me." Qin Chuan looked at Ningya with a touched expression. In the past, he had not thought that Ningya was a good teacher, but now he truly felt that Ningya was the best teacher in the world. "Later, write down your experience in the Cursed Lands. I will send it to those people one by one. This way, they will not continue to cause trouble for you. As for what those people can obtain from the Cursed Lands, that will depend on their own abilities." After this incident, it was impossible for Qin Chuan to hide the secret of the Cursed Lands. After all, Qin Chuan had already told the Lion Duke, so there was no reason for him to continue hiding it from others. Doing this would help Qin Chuan avoid any future worries, and it would also completely remove Qin Chuan from this whirlpool. This would only benefit Qin Chuan. Qin Chuan hesitantly looked at Ningya and said, "Teacher, I would like to meet my friend." "Your friend? Are you talking about Lu Zi or Bai Yu?" Ningya looked at Qin Chuan playfully, as though she was curious about Qin Chuan's choice. "Bai Yu." Qin Chuan gave an answer that surprised Ningya. In the room, Qin Chuan looked at Bai Yu, who was sitting on a chair, with a guilty expression. He said in a low voice, "Sorry, I might not be able to help you keep the secret of the Cursed Lands." "I know." Bai Yu looked at Qin Chuan calmly, as if she was not surprised by this matter. "I should be the one apologizing to you. In order to help me keep this secret, you have to bear too many things that you should not bear. We are companions. This is what I should do for you. Qin Chuan pursed his lips and did not accept Bai Yu's apology. In fact, apart from Qin Chuan and Bai Yu, even Lu Zi and Chun Chongqing did not know that Qin Chuan did not play any key role in their escape from the Cursed Lands. The one who truly brought them out was actually Bai Yu. At that time, Lu Zi and Chun Chongqing were exhausted and unconscious due to repeated battles and injuries. Only Qin Chuan and Bai Yu were still conscious. It was Bai Yu who led Qin Chuan to the teleportation array and fought a great battle with the stitched monsters guarding the teleportation array. In that battle, Qin Chuan was forced into a desperate situation by the stitched monsters. The runic sword suddenly appeared and killed the stitched monsters. But because of this, the runic sword fell into a deep slumber and had not awakened until now. At that time, Lu Zi and Chun Chongqing, who just happened to wake up, only saw Qin Chuan display his might and kill the stitch monsters. Then, he used the spirit bead to set up the teleportation array and activated it. However, they did not know that the person who led them to the teleportation array was Bai Yu, and the person who taught Qin Chuan how to set up the array was also Bai Yu. The reason why Bai Yu did not do these things herself was that she planned to sacrifice herself to lure the stitched monsters away so that Qin Chuan and the others could escape. It was also because of this choice that Qin Chuan decided to bear everything for Bai Yu and help her hide this secret. Bai Yu did not agree with Qin Chuan at first, but Qin Chuan used Lu Zi and Chun Chongqing as the reason that they had seen it with their own eyes to force Bai Yu to agree with Qin Chuan's decision. At that time, they had agreed that if they encountered danger, Qin Chuan had to reveal the truth to protect himself. Qin Chuan had also agreed. But now, Qin Chuan's situation made it impossible for him to keep his mouth shut. I did not say that these things were related to you. I told them that I discovered these secrets myself. Why? Bai Yu looked at Qin Chuan with a puzzled expression. He had clearly revealed the matter of the Cursed Land. Why did he not put her, the person who truly understood the Cursed Land, on the table and completely remove himself from the picture? Because I know that the Cursed Land is very important to you. Qin Chuan said to Bai Yu very seriously. I saw it. When I killed that stitch monster, you cried. Bai Yu fell silent and did not speak. She lowered her head, not wanting Qin Chuan to see her face. Although there are many things that I do not know, there's one thing that I know very well. At that time, you really want to sacrifice yourself to save us. Qin Chuan smiled. You are willing to sacrifice your life to save us. I am also willing to bear some insignificant trouble to help you keep the secret. Hearing Qin Chuan's words, Bai Yu's shoulders trembled slightly. She slowly raised her head and looked at Qin Chuan with a miserable and pained expression. They are not mountain ghosts. They're my clansmen. This is what Qin Chuan said he saw in the Cursed Land. Lan Yuquan looked at the words written on the paper in his hand and frowned slightly. Until now, he still did not understand why there was a teleportation formation in the Cursed Land that was connected to the school's teleportation square. Who on earth had built a teleportation formation in the Cursed Land? Perhaps only O.L. Amos knew the answer. Thinking of O.L. Amos, Lan Yuquan glanced at the person standing beside him and asked, What does old Amos have to say about today's matter? Nothing. That person shook his head. O.L. Amos is still leisurely fiddling with his vegetable garden every day. He does not care about the world and does not care about anything. So leisurely, so comfortable. Lan Yuquan sighed softly. These people seemed to have high positions and power, but in fact they were busy with all kinds of things. Only people like O.L. Amos could be truly carefree. This was the charm of the nascent soul stage. Chapter 191. In the cultivation room, Ningya looked at Qin Zhu, who was sitting on the floor with a serious expression. She was puzzled and asked, Why is your expression so serious? Qin Zhu looked deeply at Ningya and said, I've investigated. There's no relationship between the Wu family and the 28th Legion. Ningya raised her eyebrows slightly and said, You mean that the 28th Legion's refusal to support the Elf City has nothing to do with the Wu family? That's not what I meant. Qin Ju pursed his lips and said seriously to Ningya, maybe the person who framed Qin Chuan isn't the Wu family, but someone else. We have to find that person to ensure Qin Chuan's safety. Qin Chuan is very safe now. If you do anything else, it'll just be unnecessary. Ningya smiled and said to Qin Ju, Wu Yunfei has already taken the blame for this matter. Qin Chuan has also told everyone about the cursed land. In the future, no one will find trouble with Qin Chuan. There's no need to complicate things. Qin Ju frowned and looked at Ningya suspiciously. He asked, Do you know something that I don't? After all, I'm Qin Chuan's teacher. There are some things that he's willing to tell me, but he might not be willing to let you know. Ningya looked at Qin Ju playfully, looking forward to his next performance. Just as Ningya expected, Qin Ju's expression became very ugly and even a little angry. She stared at Ningya and said unhappily, You know that my relationship with him is even more intimate. It's definitely not something that a teacher like you can compare to. So? Ningya's lips curled up. Are you jealous? I just feel that we should let him know the truth. Know the truth? I don't think this is a good thing for him. Isn't it good to let him be an orphan? Qin Ju fell silent. After a while, she stood up and looked deeply at Ningya. Qin Chuan is still young. I won't allow him to fall in love now. You have to keep him away from those girls. Do you understand? Please, he's already 18 years old. I'm almost 80 years old, and I've never been in love. What's the big deal about being 18? Ningya, I say it's time for you to find a man. Ningya looked at Qin Ju with a subtle gaze and said, With your status and the power of your Qin family, it's really easy for you to find a good husband. Qin Ju's expression changed slightly when he heard this. He said in a low voice, My beloved is already dead. Ningya was stunned for a moment before a bitter expression appeared on her face. She said softly, You're right. The man we like is already dead. Looking at the lonely expression on Ningya's face, Qin Ju seemed to have thought of something and warned her sternly. You'd better not have any ideas about Qin Chuan. If I find out what you've done to Qin Chuan, I'll definitely kill you. Ningya looked at Qin Ju in astonishment. After a while, she giggled and looked at Qin Ju with interest. She said in a playful tone, I didn't think too much about it first, but after your reminder, I suddenly feel that a teacher-student relationship is not bad. Boom! A violent explosion sounded, and the cultivation room was in a mess. If there was a city in the Star Dragon Federation that was recognized as the economic, cultural, and political center of the Federation, it would definitely be the capital of the Federation, Star Dragon City. As the capital of the Federation, Star Dragon City was located on the Golden Plains in the center of the Federation. It covered an area of 100,000 square kilometers and had a population of over 100 million. Among them, 80% were from aristocratic families and sects. It was no exaggeration to say that Star Dragon City was the headquarters of aristocratic families and sects. As one of the four most prosperous aristocratic families in the Federation, the Qin clan was located in the inner city of Star Dragon City. They had a luxurious manor that was tens of thousands of square meters. In the manor of the Qin clan, there was a pavilion on a small lake with rippling blue waves. In the pavilion, a tall and thin youth was leaning against the railing. He was looking into the distance, but no one knew where he was looking. Beep, beep, beep. The optical computer on the exquisite jade table suddenly rang. Immediately after, the figure of a middle-aged man appeared on the optical computer. The middle-aged man had a gentle expression. He looked at the youth with an exceptionally kind gaze. He didn't have the arrogance and indifference that he usually had in front of outsiders. He was Qin Yiming, the current head of the Qin clan. How, Xuan, are you looking at the scenery in the pavilion in the middle of the lake again? Hearing Qin Yiming's voice, the youth called Hao Xuan slowly turned around and looked at Qin Yiming. With a cold expression, he asked in a somewhat stiff tone, There are still 3 days before the Foundation establishment banquet. Is Aunt really not coming back? Qin Yiming heard this and smiled bitterly. He shook his head and said, Your aunt has something very important to deal with recently. It might be very difficult for her to come back. Qin Haoshuan looked deeply at Qin Yiming and said, Aunt usually loves me the most. What could be more important than attending my foundation establishment banquet? Hao Xuan, you're not a child anymore. You should know that your aunt is the commander of the 10th Legion. She can't return to the clan as she pleases. Qin Yiming sighed and said, I promise you that I will ask your aunt to apologize to you later. There is no need for that. Aunt is an elder. How can an elder apologize to a junior? Qin Haoshuan pursed his lips and said, Father, I want to ask you for a favor. What is it? Qin Yiming was somewhat curious. His son had always been very opinionated. It was rare for him to ask for a favor. Qin Haoshuan said indifferently, I want to participate in the ranking competition in half a year. The ranking competition of the 6 great academies? Qin Yiming was slightly surprised. Weren't you not interested in this ranking competition before? Now I'm interested. Qin Haoshuan did not explain too much. Hee, you should have a spot in this ranking competition. However, you were not willing to go at that time. I asked someone else to take your place. Now that you are willing, there is no problem if you want to participate. Qin Yiming laughed and said proudly to Qin Haoshuan, You are our Qin clan's genius. You should let others see the glory of our Qin clan's genius in the ranking competition. Since you want to make a name for yourself, I might as well tell you a piece of news in advance. Not long ago, your grandfather went to the Dragon Spirit Lake in the Black Moon Mountain Range and brought back a treasure for you. When the time comes, he will give it to you at your foundation establishment banquet. You must not be shocked by this surprise. I understand. After the conversation ended, Qin Haoshuan silently watched Qin Yiming's figure slowly disappear. Then, he looked at the sparkling lake again with a grave expression. Aunt, are you not coming back because you're too busy with work or because of that Qin Xuan? Chapter 192. Ever since the incident with Ningya, all the higher-ups in the Azure Ancient City had shifted their attention to the Cursed Land. No one paid any attention to Qin Xuan anymore. As a result, Qin Xuan's life returned to normal. Qin Xuan also had another nickname in school, the man who escaped from the Demon King. In the cultivation room in the dormitory, Qin Xuan was cultivating with the help of the Spiritual Infusion Talisman Array and the Spiritual Reception Talisman Array. Lu Zi sat at the side and browsed through the optical computer. She seemed to have seen something special as she looked surprised. At this moment, Qin Xuan stopped cultivating and slowly opened his eyes. He looked at Lu Zi and asked curiously, You look weird. What happened? Look. Lu Zi turned the optical computer to Qin Xuan and said seriously, This is the news from the Federation yesterday. Qin Haoshuan, the genius of the Qin family, one of the 4 big families, held his foundation establishment banquet yesterday. During his foundation establishment banquet, his grandfather, the nascent soul stage powerhouse Qin Chongxiao, appeared and gave a dragon soul to Qin Haoshuan as a gift. It shocked the world. Dragon soul, Qin Chongxiao. Upon hearing these 2 keywords, Qin Xuan's expression couldn't help but turn solemn. He looked at Qin Haoshuan's photo that was displayed in the message. It was a handsome young man with a cold and arrogant expression. It was obvious that Qin Haoshuan was the person that Azure Dragon Song Hao wanted him to kill. We were at the Dragon Spirit Lake. Lu Zi pursed her lips and said, That nascent soul stage cultivator should be Qin Chongxiao. As the royal family of the Demon Clan, the Dragon Clan rarely appeared in the human world. Every dragon child was protected by a powerful Demon Clan cultivator. Even though Qin Chongxiao was a nascent soul stage cultivator, he could forget about entering the Demon Clan's world to hunt for dragon children. In addition, they had witnessed what happened at the Dragon Spirit Lake. Lu Zi naturally linked the mysterious nascent soul stage cultivator to Qin Chongxiao. This matter has nothing to do with us. Just keep it to yourself. Qin Xuan did not intend to reveal the truth to Lu Zi. Some things, the fewer people who knew, the better. We can't afford to offend the Qin family. Lu Zi stuck out her tongue and said, However, this Qin Haoshuan is the same age as us. Yet, he is already in the foundation establishment realm, as expected of the Qin clan's genius. Yeah, he's already in the foundation establishment stage, and I'm only in the 12th level of the Qi refining stage. Qin Xuan sighed helplessly. It would be very difficult for him to kill Qin Haoshuan. It doesn't matter. You're already very powerful. After all, Qin Haoshuan is backed by the Qin family, one of the 4 big aristocratic families. You have nothing. It is not easy for you to get to where you are today with your own efforts. Lu Zi encouraged Qin Xuan and said, I believe that you will surpass Qin Haoshuan sooner or later. Thank you. Qin Xuan smiled faintly. Then, he asked Lu Zi, how's your study of the 2nd level charm array coming along? Lu Zi was somewhat distressed when she heard this. She said to Qin Xuan, unfortunately, I haven't completely comprehended the shadow body charm array yet. It seems that I can only participate in the examination of the 2nd level charm array master by myself. Qin Xuan stood up and said, you cultivate slowly. I will leave first. Now that Qin Haoshuan's strength was getting stronger and stronger, Qin Xuan couldn't continue to sit and wait for death. He had to work even harder in his cultivation, and participating in the 2nd grade Talisman Array Master examination was something that couldn't be delayed. Lu Zi watched Qin Xuan's figure leave the cultivation room. Her expression became somewhat melancholic. She realized that Qin Xuan seemed to have changed into a different person after he had experienced the beast tide. She could not understand him. However, there was one thing that had not changed, and that was his pursuit of power. Cultivate diligently. Lu Zi clenched her fists. She had to comprehend the shadow body charm array before the winter break. When Qin Xuan arrived at the Black Moon Combat Academy's office in the Elven City through the transfer array, the staff in the office looked at Qin Xuan with strange gazes. After all, they were facing a young man who had escaped from a demon king with his Qi condensation stage strength. Deacons, can I trouble you to not look at me with such gazes? Qin Xuan was somewhat embarrassed. The feeling of being looked at like a rare animal wherever he went was not very good. Hee, student Qin Xuan, you're now a big celebrity in our school. The deacon in charge of the transfer array chuckled at Qin Xuan and said, with Teacher Ning's guidance, I believe that you will definitely have great achievements. Thank you. Qin Xuan thanked the deacon and then hurriedly left the office. He walked towards the Talisman Array Masters Guild branch in the Elven City, according to the route in his memory. The Talisman Array Masters Guild was the largest, most popular, and most influential guild in the Star Dragon Federation. Even though it was only a branch, it could be said to be rather luxurious and grand in both appearance and interior. It wasn't an exaggeration to say that the Talisman Array Masters Guild branch in the Elven City was absolutely the most imposing building in the entire Elven City. It couldn't be helped. After all, the Talisman Array Masters Guild was rich. Usually, there weren't many people coming and going from the Talisman Array Masters Guild. The Talisman Array Masters Guild would only be lively for a period of time when the Talisman Array Masters Guild exam was held every 6 months. At this moment, Qin Xuan walked into the Talisman Array Masters Guild's hall and only saw a few dozen figures in the spacious hall. It could be said to be rather deserted. Sir, may I ask if you are a Talisman Array Master? Qin Xuan had just entered and didn't even have the time to carefully size up the Talisman Array Masters Guild's hall when an enthusiastic staff member came up to greet him. I'm not a Talisman Array Master. Qin Xuan shook his head and said, I'm here to participate in the Talisman Array Masters exam. The staff member faintly smiled when he heard this and said, the Talisman Array Masters exam is held every 6 months. It's not the time for the exam yet. Sir, please come back when the exam time is up. Qin Xuan shook his head again and said, I'm here to participate in the 2nd Rank Talisman Array Masters exam. The 1st Rank Talisman Array Masters exam needed to wait for a specific time, but the 2nd rank and above didn't. The staff member was somewhat surprised. The 2nd Rank Talisman Array Masters exam? So young? As if he had thought of something, the staff member curiously asked, May I ask if Sir is a student of the Black Moon Combat Academy? That's right. I'm a freshman at the Black Moon Combat Academy. The Talisman Array Masters exam organized by the Academy should be in a month, but I don't want to wait any longer. Qin Xuan asked the staff member, I don't have a first-rank Talisman Array Master's medal. Can I participate in the second-rank Talisman Array Master's exam? According to the rules, you naturally can't. However, as long as you show your Black Moon Combat Academy's medal and prove your identity, and with a mentor's recommendation, you can skip the first-rank Talisman Array Master's exam and directly participate in the second-rank Talisman Array Master's exam. This is a privilege that only official students of the Black Moon Combat Academy have. So it's like that. Qin Chuan had a pensive look on his face. It would be troublesome to go back and get a mentor's recommendation, so he might as well just ask Ningyu to verify his identity through a video call. Chapter 193. Because of Qin Chuan's words, the expressions on Angel and Jean Li's faces became a little strange. What's behind the door? Angel turned her head and looked at the tightly shut door. She could not sense anything with her perception, and the more she did not know, the more afraid she was. Qin Chuan took a deep breath and said to Angel, "The thing inside is very evil. We must not let it out. My friend, can you please lock this door again? We need to leave this place immediately." Hearing Qin Chuan's words, Jean Li frowned slightly and said, "Are you sure you're not kidding me? Angel, and I can't sense anything through this door, but you can sense that there's something extremely evil hidden behind it. Do young people nowadays like to exaggerate when they're chasing girls? Jean Li, you don't know him. He's not that kind of person." Angel shook her head and said to Jean Li, "Just listen to him. Lock the door and let's leave." It was Jean Li's first time meeting Qin Chuan. She did not know Qin Chuan's character, so she said such words without thinking. However, Angel and Qin Chuan had known each other for some time. Through this period of contact, she knew that Qin Chuan was definitely not the kind of person who liked to boast. Since Qin Chuan was sure that there was danger behind the door, there must be danger. Leaving in time was the best choice. Hearing Angel's words, although Jean Li was very unwilling, she could only turn around and lock the door. At this moment, the door slowly opened. Click hum. As the door opened, an extremely strong, evil aura suddenly poured out from the gap of the door and rushed straight at Qin Chuan and the other two. Jean Li, who did not think much of it before, was the first to bear the brunt of it. Her expression suddenly became extremely horrified. Retreat. Qin Chuan reached out and grabbed Angel and Jean Li and quickly retreated. He wanted to retreat back the way he came, but he did not expect that the Anders group had completely sealed off their escape route. This is a trap set for us by the insectoids. After the matter was exposed, they knew that we would definitely come here. Qin Chuan's expression darkened. We've been tricked. At this time, Angel and Jean Li also knew that Qin Chuan was right. They had been tricked by Zerg. Even if they did not open the door, Zerg would find a way to make the door open automatically. Roar. An extremely deep roar came from a room behind the door, and a pitch-black claw, with mucus dripping from it, reached out. Bang! Accompanied by a violent crashing sound, a huge and bloated body smashed the door frame, and then slammed into the wall of the corridor. The mucus all over its body instantly corroded the wall, making a sizzling sound. Qin Chuan and the other two looked at the huge creature that came out of the room with a hint of shock in their eyes. They thought that Zerg soldiers would be behind the door, but they did not expect it to be such a monster. What is that? Qin Chuan was a little shocked. I've never seen Zerg cultivate something like that. Angel shook her head and replied, "It's my first time seeing it too. It doesn't look easy to deal with. This thing's strength is definitely not inferior to a Dongshu stage cultivator. A Dongshu stage monster." Just thinking about it made Angel's heart skip a beat. What made Angel even more terrified was that the doors of the other rooms in the corridor had opened as well. Oh my god! Jean Li stared at the monsters of different sizes that crawled out of a room with her mouth agape. She cried out, "Angel, I'm really going to die because of you this time." Puff! The monster with the largest body opened its mouth and spat out a ball of black mucus at Qin Chuan and the other two. In the blink of an eye, the mucus arrived in front of the three of them, not giving them any chance to dodge. At this critical moment, Qin Chuan stepped forward and raised his hand, waving a sword energy. Silver River Sword Intent. The stars were bright, and the Silver River surged. The moment the pure and beautiful Silver River appeared, it was polluted by the black mucus and turned into a black river. Whoosh! Taking advantage of the moment when the Silver River Sword Intent blocked the black mucus, Qin Chuan and the other two immediately pulled away. Qin Chuan looked at the roaring monster with an extremely dignified gaze and said to the two beside him, "We have to find a way to get out of here. Jinli, you're the best at picking locks, so I'll leave the matter of how to get out of here to you. Angel, I'll be the main attacker, and you cooperate with me." At this time, Qin Chuan no longer cared about etiquette and directly called Angel by her name. Angel had no objection to this. She just looked at Qin Chuan with a subtle gaze and asked, "Are you sure you want me to assist you? Can you do it?" Although Qin Chuan had created many miracles, after all, Qin Chuan was only at the apotheosis stage. If he faced this group of monsters, she was afraid that he would not be able to gain any advantage. "You're the strongest. If I can't do it, you could take my place. I'm the vanguard to scout out the enemy situation." Qin Chuan pursed his lips. "It's up to you to really destroy these things." Qin Chuan was very clear about his own capabilities. If he couldn't do it, Angel could still take his place. But if Angel couldn't do it, it would be difficult for him to take her place. Just as Qin Chuan and Angel were talking, the Silver River Sword Intent suddenly shattered, and a huge monster rushed toward them like a black lightning bolt. Seeing this scene, Qin Chuan shouted in a low voice, and a formation diagram appeared in front of him. It was the combination of the 5 elements circle charm array. Red flame. Boom! A red flame spewed out from the formation diagram, turning into a monstrous sea of fire that instantly drowned the monster. As the mucus on the monster's body burned, an extremely fishy smell spread in the corridor. "Be careful, this smell is poisonous." Under Qin Chuan's reminder, Angel and Jean Li temporarily sealed their respiratory systems and pores so that the smell could not enter. Roar! Even under the burning of the flames, the monster still maintained its exuberant vigor. It roared angrily, completely ignoring the burning flames on its body, and suddenly charged out of the sea of fire, opening its bloody mouth to bite at Qin Chuan. Sizzle! Qin Chuan used thunder evasion to get behind the monster. Just as he was about to make a move, other monsters pounced on him. Qin Chuan was immediately besieged by all the monsters. Angel was immediately shocked when she saw this. She subconsciously wanted to save Qin Chuan, but at this moment, a dragon roar sounded, shaking the heavens and the earth. Roar! The gigantic azure thunder dragon broke through the encirclement of the monsters. Its entire body released an endless amount of lightning energy. The violent energy instantly tore the smaller monsters into pieces. Whoosh! Qin Chuan, who had turned into an azure thunder dragon, turned around and spat out a blue dragon breath, instantly turning the corridor into a thunder pool. Not far away, Angel and Jean Li were dumbfounded when they saw this scene. They said in disbelief, "Dragon God?" Chapter 194. Masterly, I'd like to ask if my information will be archived and uploaded after I pass the test. This question was very important, and Qin Chuan had to ask clearly before he could decide what to do next. Li Feng was slightly stunned when he heard this, and then he smiled. "Don't always call me Masterly. Your teacher and I are friends, so you can directly address me as teacher. Just call me Teacher, Li, or Brother Feng. As for the archiving of information, it's something that must be done, and no one is an exception. Since it's like this, then I won't participate in the 2nd grade Battle Formation Master Test. Just consider me as having passed the 2nd grade Talisman Formation Master Test." Qin Chuan didn't want to reveal all of his trump cards before others. Even though it was difficult for ordinary people to look through the Talisman Formation Master Association's archives, the Qin clan wasn't an ordinary clan. In short, it was better to conceal one of his trump cards and be cautious. Li Feng was slightly surprised when he heard Qin Chuan's words. He looked at Qin Xuan with a puzzled expression and asked, "Are you planning to conceal your abilities?" "You can say that." Qin Xuan nodded and said frankly, "I've offended many people from large clans, so it's better to conceal my abilities." Li Feng wasn't surprised by Qin Xuan's explanation. He had a good understanding of Qin Xuan's matters and knew that Qin Xuan wasn't lying. If Qin Xuan really exposed his trump cards and uploaded them to the archives, then even if he didn't look through Qin Xuan's files, the other branches might. Therefore, it was reasonable for Qin Xuan to be cautious and temporarily give up on the second grade battle formation master test. You know how to conceal your abilities at such a young age. Not bad. Li Feng looked at Qin Xuan with admiration and said, "You've come to take the second grade talisman formation master test because you intend to conduct your training at the guild during the winter break, right?" "Yes." Qin Xuan nodded and said, "Brother Feng, it's not just the winter break. I want to conduct my training at the guild for the next 2 months starting from tomorrow. I wonder if you can arrange a room for me?" "Of course, no problem." Li Feng laughed and said to Qin Xuan, "Since you call me Brother Feng, as your brother, of course I have to fulfill some of your small requests. From tomorrow onwards, you will be my assistant. If there is anything you don't understand, feel free to ask me. I guarantee that you will make great progress in the study of talisman arrays in these 2 months." "Thank you, Brother Feng." Qin Xuan looked at Li Feng gratefully. He couldn't help but think of his own teacher, Ningya. He realized that his teacher was really resourceful. No matter where she went, she had acquaintances who could help her. Just like this, Qin Xuan directly stayed temporarily in the Talisman Formation Masters Association, and he immersed himself wholeheartedly into the training. Within the cultivation room, Li Feng, who wore a greasy robe, casually pointed at a piece of pitch black wood on the ground, and then he instructed Qin Xuan, who sat by his side. "Kid, polish that black spirit wood for me and make it into a grade 2 talisman disc. As usual, try to be as smooth as possible and don't make any mistakes." Qin Xuan didn't say anything when he heard this and directly stretched out his hand to take the black spirit wood. After that, he closed his eyes and used his spiritual energy as a carving knife to start polishing the black spirit wood and make the talisman disc that Li Feng needed. When a normal talisman formation master was polishing a talisman disc, they would first use a carving knife to carve the shape, and then use a spirit stone to polish it. However, Qin Xuan was requested by Li Feng to use his spiritual energy the entire time and not rely on any external forces. Although doing this would be slightly troublesome, it would have an extremely good effect in tempering Qin Xuan's spiritual energy. So Qin Xuan didn't have any objections to this. Under the polishing of Qin Xuan's spiritual energy, the black spirit wood was gradually transforming towards the talisman disc. During this process of transformation, Qin Xuan had to provide an endless supply of spiritual energy to polish it. Once it was interrupted, a flaw would appear in this talisman disc, and it would affect the quality of the talisman formation inscribed on it. With Qin Xuan's current spiritual energy, he could only barely polish a level 2 talisman disc in a short period of time. So he had to be careful and absolutely couldn't make any mistakes. Time passed little by little. After nearly 2 hours, Qin Xuan's face had become incomparably pale, and his forehead was full of sweat. However, Qin Xuan's expression was still calm and indifferent. He was wholeheartedly immersed in polishing the talisman disc and seemed to be unaware of the changes in his body. Buzz. When the last tiny burr on the talisman disc was polished smooth, Qin Xuan finally finished polishing the level 2 talisman disc. He opened his eyes and raised his hand to wipe the sweat on his forehead. Looking at the talisman disc in his hand, he couldn't help but reveal a joyful smile. After 10 days, he had finally succeeded in polishing a perfect level 2 talisman disc in one go. "Brother Feng, the talisman disc is done." Qin Xuan handed the talisman disc in his hand to Li Feng and let him check if the talisman disc was up to standard. Hearing this, Li Feng looked at Qin Xuan with some astonishment. Then, he reached out and took the talisman disc. He carefully inspected the talisman disc and couldn't help but exclaim in admiration, as expected of a talisman array Dao genius. You can actually complete the polishing of a level 2 talisman disc in such a short time, using only spiritual energy. Not bad, not bad at all. I remember that even your teacher used half a month to complete this step. You're faster than her by 5 days. Hearing Li Feng's praise, Qin Chuan was very happy in his heart. However, he didn't have time to be happy for long before he felt his vision turning black. His head hurt so badly that it seemed like he would faint at any time. At this moment, Li Feng, who had been prepared, passed a nutrient fluid to Qin Chuan's mouth. Qin Chuan was like a hungry tiger pouncing on its prey as he crazily swallowed the entire nutrient fluid into his mouth. Only then did he relieve the headache from just now. With your current spiritual energy, inscribing such a perfect level 2 talisman disc would definitely exhaust all of your spiritual energy. Fortunately, I was prepared. Li Feng laid Qin Chuan flat on the ground. He smiled and said to Qin Chuan, "This is a special nutrient fluid to replenish spiritual energy. The amount isn't large, but it's enough to let you return to your normal state. However, you won't be able to use spiritual energy for a short period of time. Back then, I saw your teacher faint with my own eyes, so I'm very experienced in this aspect." Qin Chuan was a little surprised when he heard this. He couldn't help but ask, "Brother Feng, what's the relationship between you and my teacher?" Qin Chuan had been curious about this matter for a long time. "Ningya and I, of course." Li Feng's face revealed a look of reminiscence. He smiled and said, "We came from the same sect. She's the old dean's disciple, and I'm also the old dean's disciple. We should be brother and sister." Qin Chuan was a little startled when he heard this. Brother and sister? Wasn't that his martial uncle? Chapter 195. Brother Feng, you're my martial uncle. Why do you want to call you Brother Feng? Qin Chuan didn't know whether to laugh or cry. This messed up the seniority. It doesn't matter if you call me Brother Feng, because I was expelled from the school by the old dean. I can't be considered your martial uncle. When he mentioned the past, Li Feng's face couldn't help but reveal a slightly embarrassed smile. The past was unbearable to recall. Expelled from the school? Wasn't that the same as being expelled from the school? Qin Chuan was very surprised. Although he didn't know what happened back then, he could guess that Li Feng must have made a big mistake, which caused the old dean to be angry and expel him from the school. All right, let's not talk about the past. Have a good rest. I'll continue fiddling with my talisman array combination. As he spoke, Li Feng turned around and began to study his self-created talisman array combination. Qin Chuan didn't want to get to the bottom of the matter. Seeing that Li Feng wasn't willing to talk about it, he didn't dig up Li Feng's scars and began to lie on the ground to rest. After about an hour, Qin Chuan felt a little better and sat up on the ground. That's not right. Where did the problem come from? It shouldn't be. Li Feng grabbed his hair in annoyance. His brows were tightly knitted, as if he had encountered some difficult problem. Qin Chuan saw Li Feng's annoyed appearance and asked with concern, "Brother Feng, what's wrong?" Hearing this, Li Feng suddenly raised his eyes to look at Qin Chuan. His gaze was frighteningly hot. He grabbed Qin Chuan's arm and said to Qin Chuan, "You're a genius in talisman arrays. You're even more outstanding than my senior sister. If it's you, you should be able to see where the problem is, right?" Saying this, Li Feng pushed a pile of blueprints in front of Qin Chuan and said to Qin Chuan, "This is the 5 elements rotation talisman array combination that I designed myself. Help me take a look and see if there's any problem." Qin Chuan was stunned. Something that even a level 3 talisman array master couldn't figure out. Wouldn't it be too difficult for him, a level 2 talisman array master, to figure it out? However, in the face of Li Feng's crazy and somewhat frightening gaze, Qin Chuan could only brace himself and study these blueprints first. Qin Chuan picked up the blueprint on the ground. After figuring out the order, he began to look at it seriously. He looked at it until 10 o'clock in the evening. 6 hours later, Qin Chuan finally understood the blueprint. At the same time, he was amazed at Li Feng's whimsical thinking. Li. Qin Chuan only had one word to describe this set of talisman array combination. Heavenly horse soaring across the sky. Li Feng. and no matter how much Li Feng tried, Li Feng waited for a long time. He couldn't help but ask in an expectant tone when he saw Qin Chuan put down the blueprints. What did you see? This is a very bold and creative idea. To be honest, I'm a little scared. Qin Chuan was very honest. He was indeed shocked by Li Feng's idea. Fortunately, the combination of the 5 elements rotation talisman array was still in the deducing stage. If Li Feng had personally practiced it, perhaps he would have been killed by the chaotic power of the 5 elements. Of course, my idea is incomparably genius. Li Feng smiled proudly. He said to Qin Chuan, "It's no exaggeration to say that if my 5 elements rotation talisman array combination is successful, its power may not be inferior to your teacher's vast ocean talisman array." Hearing this, Qin Chuan helplessly glanced at Li Feng and said, "However, your talisman array combination has no hope of success." The smile on Li Feng's face froze. Like a cat whose tail was stepped on, he jumped up and said loudly, "You're talking nonsense. How can a genius idea have no hope of success?" "Brother Feng, you're too involved." Qin Chuan sighed. He said to Li Feng, "Your idea is correct. There's no problem with the design. However, you've neglected a very important thing. This 5 elements rotation talisman array combination requires one person to construct 5 different elemental battle arrays at the same time. Even with the help of the array disk, it's still a difficult task. If the 5 elements rotation talisman arrays are activated one after the other, there will be a situation of instability. Even if you can barely control the stability of the array, it will take a long time. Do you think your enemy will stand there obediently and give you time to assemble the array? Then what if I activate the 5 elements rotation talisman arrays at the same time? Then you'll first have to face the problem of whether your spiritual energy is strong enough. Brother Feng, with your spiritual energy as a rank 3 array master, can you activate 5 rank 2 battle arrays at the same time? I can't. Li Feng answered Qin Chuan's question very honestly. With the strength of his spiritual energy, activating 3 elements rotation talisman arrays at the same time was already his limit. Activating one more element rotation talisman arrays would easily cause his spiritual energy to collapse, let alone 2. With my teacher's strength, he might be able to barely do it. However, for a battle formation master at my teacher's level, this 5 elements rotation talisman array combination is of little value. Qin Chuan patted Li Feng's shoulder. The 5 elements rotation talisman array combination was indeed very strong, but it obviously only existed in theory. Li Feng was somewhat dejected. He suddenly felt that his research during this period of time was completely in vain. However, Brother Feng, I've thought of another possibility. Qin Chuan seemed to have thought of something. Suddenly, he looked at Li Feng with a burning gaze and said, "I've thought of a way to turn the 5 elements rotation talisman array combination into reality." Hearing Qin Chuan's words, Li Feng, who was originally somewhat dispirited, suddenly became spirited. He looked at Qin Chuan with a face full of pleasant surprise and asked very excitedly, "You've really thought of a way?" "Yes." Qin Chuan nodded vigorously and said, "Combining 5 rank 2 battle arrays is a very difficult task. However, what if you simplify these 5 rank 2 battle arrays into a rank 1 battle array? Although doing so will reduce the power of the talisman array combination, it will greatly increase the stability and controllability of the talisman array combination, increasing the success rate. Once you can skillfully control the rank 1 5 elements rotation talisman array combination, it may not be impossible to try the rank 2 5 elements rotation talisman array combination." Following Qin Chuan's words, Li Feng immediately sank into contemplation. His face showed a touch of distress for a while, and then he started to giggle foolishly. Finally, he clapped his hands fiercely and said to Qin Chuan with great excitement, "Let's do it. We'll do as you say." Chapter 196. In fact, the reason why Qin Chuan could think of this method to simplify the combination of the 5 elements rotation charm arrays was thanks to the Sea of Runes. When he first obtained the spiritual absorption charm array and the spiritual injection charm array, they were both level 4 charm arrays. With Qinchuan's strength, he could not inscribe them at all. However, the Sea of Runes was ingenious and simplified the 2 level 4 charm arrays into level 1 charm arrays. Although the effect was greatly reduced, it allowed Qinchuan to successfully touch some of the essence of level 4 charm arrays in the Qi refining stage. It could be said that Qinchuan benefited a lot from it. Now, Qinchuan copied the method of simplifying the spiritual absorption charm array and the spiritual injection charm array to simplify the combination of the invisible rotation charm arrays. The combination of the 5 elements rotation charm arrays was composed of 5 level 2 battle arrays. They were the Scarlet Flame charm array, the Blue Wave charm array, the Thorns charm array, the Sharp Gold charm array, and the Wild Sand charm array. Now, what Li Feng had to do was to simplify the 5 level 2 battle arrays into level 1 battle arrays. As for why Qinchuan did not help, it was because Qinchuan's current understanding of the charm arrays was basically impossible to simplify the charm arrays. Therefore, he could only let Li Feng do the work. What Qinchuan needed to do was to provide ideas. For Qinchuan, who did not possess the 5 elements attribute, it was somewhat difficult to inscribe a level 2 5 elements battle array. However, if it was a level 1 5 elements rotation charm array, it would be relatively easier. According to Qinchuan and Li Feng's estimation, a level 1 5 elements rotation charm array could erupt with the power of a level 3 battle array. If it was really successful, it would definitely become a new trump card in Qinchuan's hands. Although he already had a clear idea, when he really started to put it into practice, he still encountered great difficulties. Just simplifying a Scarlet Flame Talisman array took an entire 10 days. According to this speed, it would take at least 40 days to simplify all 5 battle arrays. In order to improve the work efficiency, Qinchuan, a level 2 charm array master, had no choice but to join the ranks of simplifying the battle arrays. Time passed bit by bit, and the winter break was about to arrive. The Black Moon Combat Academy finally began to organize new students to participate in the Talisman Array Master Association's examination. This was an activity that all new students had to participate in, as those who were unable to pass the examination or were unwilling to participate would be asked to leave by the academy. It was winter, but the Azure Ancient City was still as warm as spring. Many new students gathered at the teleportation plaza, chatting and laughing. The scene was very lively. Ever since the outbreak of the Beast Tide, everyone's heart was somewhat nervous because they finally recognized their own weakness and began to cultivate diligently. Now that more than 2 months had passed, all the official students' cultivation had increased to refining Qi stage level 10 and above, and the strongest among the auditing students had already reached refining Qi stage level 9. According to the rules of the Black Moon Combat Academy, as long as auditing students could raise their cultivation to the 9th level of the Qi refining stage before the first semester's final exam and pass the Rank 1 Array Master exam, they could become official students in the next semester and obtain a Black Moon emblem. And Jing, as long as you pass today's exam, you can become an official student. Congratulations. Hu Dingshan used a congratulatory tone to speak to Su and Jing, but his eyes were filled with envy. He was currently at the 8th level of the Qi refining stage, and as long as he took another step forward, he would be able to meet the requirements to become an official student. However, there was not much time left for him, and he was afraid that it would be very difficult for him to break through to the 9th level of the Qi refining stage before the end of the semester. Su Wenjing heard Hu Dingshan's words and faintly smiled. She said to Hu Dingshan, "You also have to work hard. If you don't seize the last few days to raise your cultivation to the 9th level of the Qi refining stage, then you will need to raise your cultivation to the 13th level of the Qi refining stage in the next semester. The difficulty will become even greater. The higher the level of the Qi refining stage, the harder it was to raise one's cultivation. Generally speaking, if auditing students could not raise their cultivation to the 9th level of the Qi refining stage and become an official student in the first semester of their first year, then there was basically no hope for them to succeed. Once they entered their second year, they would need to advance to the foundation establishment stage to become an official student. You also know that I only advanced to the 8th level of the Qi refining stage half a month ago. Right now, I am still stabilizing my cultivation. There's basically no hope for me to advance to the 9th level of the Qi refining stage in these last few days. Hu Dingshan bitterly smiled. He also wanted to become an official student with Su Enjing, but he was helplessly limited by his innate talent. His cultivation speed was indeed slower than Su Enjing's. Once Su Enjing became an official student, then her position in the Black Moon Combat Academy would change. In the future, the gap between them would only grow larger and larger. Thinking of this, Hu Dingshan's heart felt a burst of disappointment and sadness. He originally wanted to become an official student with Su Enjing and then confess to her. But now, it seemed that he would never be able to say the words, "I like you," to Su Enjing. Look, it's Lu Zi. Just as Hu Dingshan's heart was filled with bitterness, a low cry suddenly came from the auditing students. Hu Dingshan and Su Enjing heard this cry and subconsciously turned their heads to look at the entrance of the teleportation plaza. A beautiful figure with elegant purple hair was slowly walking into the teleportation plaza. Seeing Lu Zi appear, Hu Dingshan's mood inevitably became somewhat complicated. He whispered, "The difference between geniuses and super geniuses is truly too great." It's said that Lu Zi's cultivation has already advanced to the 12th level of the Qi refining stage. Next semester, she can prepare to advance to the foundation establishment stage. There are even rumors that Lu Zi will skip the first grade array master exam today and directly participate in the second grade array master exam. It's really hard to imagine how these super geniuses can simultaneously advance their cultivation and delve into the Tao of talisman arrays. They're simply inhuman. Hearing Hu Dingshan sigh, Su Enjing couldn't help but think of Qin Chuan. Ever since the first day of the new semester, she hadn't seen Qin Chuan for a long time. However, Qin Chuan's deeds had been widely spread around her. Until now, there were still people who would often mention Qin Chuan's heroic deeds of sacrificing himself to save the lives of millions of people in the Elf City. It wasn't an exaggeration to say that Qin Chuan had already turned from a person to a legend. Enjing. Hu Dingshan suddenly tugged Su Enjing's sleeve lightly and whispered, "Lu Zi seems to be walking towards us." Hearing this, Su Enjing raised her eyes to look at Lu Zi in astonishment. As expected, Lu Zi was walking towards them with a smile. "Long time no see." Lu Zi stood in front of Su Enjing with a tranquil and elegant smile. "Indeed, it's been a long time." Su Enjing looked at Lu Zi with a slightly complicated expression. Back then, when they had registered, they were still at the first or second level of the Qi refining stage. The gap between them wasn't considered big. However, as time passed, the gap between them had become bigger and bigger. Chapter 197. I heard you're already at the 9th level of the Qi refinement realm. So long as you pass today's test, you'll be able to become an official student. Even though I can become an official student, I'm still far inferior when compared to super geniuses like you. Don't be discouraged. You still have many chances to catch up. Thank you, I'll work hard. After a simple chat, Su Enjing hesitated for a moment before asking Lu Zi, "Haven't you always moved with Qin Chuan? Why hasn't he come?" Lu Zi glanced at Su Enjing with a subtle gaze when she heard this. Then she glanced at Hu Dingshan, who had a dejected expression, and said with a smile, "You seem to be very concerned about Qin Chuan." "No." Su Enjing lowered her head and said in a low voice, "It's just that we haven't seen each other for a long time, so I asked out of curiosity. I reckon that the two of you will be able to meet very soon." Lu Zi smiled lightly and said, "Qin Chuan went to the Talisman Formation Masters Association branch in the City of Elves over a month ago, and he still hasn't returned until now. Truthfully speaking, I haven't seen him for a long time as well, and he never replied to my messages." Su Enjing was slightly surprised. Qin Chuan actually went to the Talisman Formation Masters Association so early? Wait, the test is clearly only today, could it be? Exactly. Qin Xuan ought to have obtained the certification of a second-grade talisman formation master now. As expected, Su Wenjing glanced at Lu Zi with a slightly complicated gaze and said, "You'll be able to obtain the certification of a second-grade talisman formation master today as well, right? It'll depend on my luck." Lu Zi smiled bitterly and shook her head, and then she said, "Truthfully speaking, I don't dare confirm it now, because I've spent most of my energy on improving my cultivation during this period of time, and I've fallen behind greatly in the Tao of talisman formations. You'll surely be able to pass. Thank you for your kind words." As the two of them chatted, the other official students had arrived successively, and the most striking amongst them was the expressionless and cold Baiyu. Because Baiyu is already at the 13th level of the Qi refinement realm, and she was the best amongst the new students. When she saw Baiyu appear, Lu Zi bid farewell to Su Wenjing and walked towards her. She gazed at Baiyu had an icy, cold expression, and she couldn't help but stretch out her hand to pinch Yu's cheek and say with a smile. Baiyu pursed her lips slightly. She didn't like others pinching her cheeks because this action was too intimate. However, because the person doing this to her was LVZ, she could only silently endure it. Baiyu raised her eyes and looked at LVZ. Her gaze moved slightly as she said softly, "Yes." The teachers leading the freshman assessment this time were Ningya, Su Yuluo, and Lan Weiwei. As the teacher in charge of the freshmen, it was normal for Lan Weiwei to be the teacher leading the team. The reason why Ningya and Su Yuluo were among the teachers leading the team was that they both wanted to go to the Talisman Formation Master Association to see Qin Xuan, so they took this task from other teachers. "Su Yuluo, I'm going to see my student. Why are you joining in the fun?" Ningya cast a sidelong glance at Su Yuluo, feeling very suspicious of her motives. "You don't understand. I'm here to see Qin Xuan because I treat Qin Xuan as my future son-in-law." Su Yuluo said to Ningya with a smile, "I discovered that my icy disciple seems to be interested in Qin Xuan." Ningya couldn't help but turn to look at Baiyu, who was walking in the crowd behind her. Baiyu noticed Ningya's gaze and nodded politely at Ningya, but there was no expression on her face, and she looked cold. Like father, like son. Ningya subtly glanced at Lu Zi, who was walking beside Baiyu. This made her recall what had happened in the past. "What did you say?" Su Yuluo looked at Ningya with some confusion. Ningya shook her head. "Nothing." As they spoke, the group had already entered the Talisman Array Master Association's hall. Today, the Talisman Array Master Association had specially cleared the hall to only entertain the group from the Black Moon Combat Academy. Therefore, the hall was very spacious and there was no one else besides the staff. Just as Lan Weiwei, who was leading the group, was about to approach the staff, a clamor suddenly came from the corridor not far away. "Brother Feng, let me tell you, what I said is definitely correct. As long as we simplify this structure, we'll definitely succeed." No. If we simplify it according to what you said, then you might be the only one who can successfully inscribe this array. This doesn't conform to my original intentions." "What original intentions?" "What we need to do now is to simplify it. As a participant, shouldn't I consider it from my own perspective? This is also my original intention. Now that you've said it, it seems very reasonable. However, let's make this clear. If we succeed, we'll continue to simplify it." "No problem. Brother Feng, don't worry. Leave it to me." When she heard these two familiar voices, Ningya couldn't help but look towards the corridor. Her expression became exceptionally strange. "Brother Feng? Brother? What the hell were these two doing? I feel that these two voices are somewhat familiar." Su Yuluo looked at Ningya in confusion. She couldn't have heard wrongly, right? At this moment, two tall and thin figures slowly walked out of the corridor. These two people had unkempt hair and dirty faces. Their clothes were wrinkled and greasy, as if they had just been picked up from a trash can. Before they even got close, a stench could be smelled. Everyone from a Black Moon Combat Academy was stunned when they saw these two beggar-like figures. The Talisman Array Masters Association was a dazzling, high-end, and high-class place. How could these two people appear here? Faced with everyone's confusion, The staff smiled awkwardly and said to everyone, "These two people are Talisman Array Masters from our Talisman Array Masters Association. One of them is the Vice President, Master Li Feng, and the other is your school student, Qinchuan." Qinchuan? When they heard the staff mention Qinchuan's name, everyone was dumbfounded. These two people were so unkempt that they looked like they hadn't bathed in a year. One of them was actually Qinchuan. Lu Zi was stupefied. She thought that she understood Qinchuan very well, but she had never seen Qinchuan so unkempt before. At this moment, Qinchuan and Li Feng, who were chatting, also noticed the group from the Black Moon Combat Academy. When he saw Ningya standing at the front, Li Feng's body suddenly trembled. He shook off Qinchuan and quickly ran towards Ningya as he wildly shouted, "Senior sister, is that you?" Bang! Ningya fiercely kicked Li Feng to the ground. She rolled her eyes and was somewhat speechless as she said, "Get lost, you're so dirty." Kikik! Everyone looked at the aggrieved Li Feng lying on the ground with black lines on their faces. This was the vice president of the Talisman Array Masters Association. Wasn't this a little too unreliable? You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.